Hello, good evening and welcome. It's your Wednesday evening fix of Community Rugby League. My name's Dave Parkinson. This is, of course, the 13 Pro Am Community Rugby League show. And as ever, I'm joined by Mr. Steve Beach. How are you doing, Steve? You okay?
Yeah, I'm doing fine, thanks, Parky. And it makes a change, actually, because we're actually sat across from each other in a room rather than you being on my telly, as it were.
and nobody wants that. Nobody wants them or nobody wants me on the telly, that's for sure. So, yeah. How was your weekend?
It was good. I had planned to go and see Sharlston Rovers against Waterhead Warriors, and it was going to be in some doubt at one spell because it was put back an hour to 3:30 kick-off. Obviously, I work as well on a Saturday, and sometimes it's a little bit difficult to get away. But I managed to get over that, and it was a really good match.
What a match you picked.
Yeah.
What a game you saw.
I mean, from early on in the season, if you remember, I said both those teams, when they meet, I'd like to go and see, and they didn't disappoint, not by any way, shape or form.
I had a bit of a quiet weekend as far as rugby league is concerned. So I was there with Community Lions, my Community Lions hat on Saturday morning. It was the last training session for the under-16s before they head off to Wales to play Wales it's a joint fixture really, so there's an under-16s international and then an under-18s international. Curiously enough, with an under-14s regional game sandwich right between the two. So you'd expect, really, wouldn't you, the games to go like that, but what we've got a kick-off at 12 o'clock for the England against Wales under-16s, and then the under-18s match kicks off at 4.
Oh.
So that's got to be a long afternoon,
it
that
is.
one. So I had the delight. It's just been revealed this week who's made the final squad.
Yeah, I was
so
looking at those.
We'll run through those. I got to catch up with two of the young Lions. I like doing these little interviews and bringing these new voices.
Yeah.
And giving a shot for these lads to have a bit of a say and tell me a little bit about where they come from. So I got to speak to Tyler Sykes from Dewsbury Celtic and Henley Donnan from Hensingham. I also got to meet up with Martyn Ellis as well. He's a friend of the show.
Yeah, I love Martyn.
Really good bloke. We know that he's head coach of Latchford Albion. We know that he's head coach of the Great Britain Teachers setup that's currently playing in the President's Cup. In fact, as you're listening to this, those two sides will probably have already played, so they're playing their final game on Wednesday evening against the Great Britain Police side, and then we've got the England Universities against the UK Armed Forces side. But Martyn's got a little bit of news himself, so we'll play that out in the interview. But I thought, while I've got him here, I might as well ask him about everything else that he's doing, and so we touched upon it, which I thought was really good. My afternoon was then spent over at Crosfields. So this was Crosfields taking on Stanningley in the Division 1. And I've got to say, what a really good game this one was as well. I had the pleasure of speaking to Ashton afterwards, the Stanningley boss. Really looking forward to you hearing that interview, because he's a really thoughtful fella.
Yeah, he is.
And so well spoken. I mean, I've heard him, speak on Sky and do a bit of a pundit sort of role. And for me, he's one of these guys that I could listen to all day.
Yeah.
Really, really good. I also got to catch up with Jamie Abram as well, who played fullback that afternoon for Crosfields, so we'll have a bit of a roundup of what happened there. But what else have we got coming up on the show? I tell you what, it's a packed one. We've got loads of guests, so I've already mentioned, 5 of them there. We've got more. So our club in focus, the Sharlston Rovers, and I got to chat with Brewerton and Gordie Long. Fascinating chat. We got a bit of a club history of 2 clubs, actually. So not only did we hear about Sharlston, but we heard about a club that Gordie played for, which was based just around the corner from where Sharlston is based as well. So a little bit of local rivalry. Apparently the club only existed for about 6 or 7 years. So we got a bit of that potted history, as well as finding out all about how Sharlston Rovers are looking forward. They've always been one of these sides that was likely to cause an upset. They've caused a couple of Challenge Cup upsets. They've got really good pedigree when it comes to knockout rugby league.
Yeah.
They've won the Barla Cup something like 3 times and lost in the final 3 times. So they're adept at getting to that stage, and they're in a rebuilding phase that's going to see them, I think, march into the future a much more positive side, because like a lot of teams, like it happens to a lot of clubs, they fell upon hard times when the team got old and they didn't have quite the players to replace the ones that they'd lost and had retired. Also had a fascinating chat as well with Nicholas Mew. Now you're thinking, we've heard of Nicholas before. Yeah, we interviewed him. We interviewed him right at that point when the Canadian Grizzlies were over to play against a whole combination of teams.
That's right,
in the World Cup,
which
actually happened when the World Cup should have taken place. So it's a good 18 months ago now. So what has happened to Masters Rugby League in Canada since? He gives us a good roundup and tells us a little bit about a tour that has also recently happened over there. So a packed show, Steve.
Absolutely chock-a-block, and it looks like we're moving from, again, like we've mentioned before, we're moving all around, not just the country, moving all around the world again. And we've mentioned this in the past, like when you did your on tours, and then obviously we came across Nicholas. Because if I'm not right, if I'm not wrong here, did we not speak to him before? Well, before as well, they actually did the Grizzlies tour.
We did, I mean, what we did was we actually spoke to him right at the start of lockdown. And this was all about, because at that time, Toronto Wolfpack were still in Super League, weren't they?
That's right, yeah.
And a decision hadn't been made of what was going to happen. They hit the rails, didn't they, unfortunately, did Toronto. And Nicholas was one of the supporters that we spoke to way back when, and it's nice to hear that he is still involved in rugby league, and perhaps even more so than ever.
Yeah, and we'll hear where they've actually been playing rugby as well.
Exactly. So loads and loads to bring you, which makes me wonder, where should I start? Because we've also got all of your results and everything to bring you up to speed with, and fixtures as well.
Let's start with the NCL.
Let's go there. So let's run through the results and then we'll talk about the games that we were at. So all the action got underway last Saturday in the Premier Division. It was Hull Dockers 18, Kells 10. No points added in the second half of this one. All points in the first, and it just sounded like a really good close encounter, that one, to be honest. Can't say the same about this next one, unfortunately. The Miners Rangers are having a bit of a terrible season as it stands at the minute. They came up against Rochdale Mayfield, who are now starting to find their straps this season.
We said that, didn't we? I know you touted them early doors, and I mean, after the win last week, that's a strengthened position. What it's probably done, Dev, is, I know we've mentioned in the past teams like going under the radar. I said, but they've certainly not. They're certainly in the radar now.
Now, I've got to say as well that Rochdale Mayfield won this game by scoring 10 tries. Now, they only kicked 3 goals, so it makes you wonder what that score could have been.
Yeah.
So it finished 46 points to 6 in favour of Rochdale Mayfield. Another fantastic result for Loch Lane. They haven't had many good results to cheer so far this season, but they beat West Hull 24 points to 16. That's a turn up for the Bucks, but West Hull seem to be a little bit susceptible to the occasional slip up, don't they, this year?
Yeah, I think we mentioned that. We mentioned their form a couple of weeks back, and we said it was surprising because they're usually one of those that are, pushing that top 5, top 6 sort of spot. But yeah, it has been sort of win one, lose one type scenario, wasn't it?
And then Wathbrow Hornets, they were involved in the game of the day, again involving Hunslet. We're not going to be looking much further than whoever Hunslet's playing for the game of the day. And I say that with the ultimate respect, because Hunslet are the team that everybody wants to beat. They're the current holders of the Premier Division title, aren't they? And Loughborough Hornets, after a very, very nip and tuck close first half, which they led 14 points to 12, ended up winning by 26 points to 12. So they kept Hunslet scoreless in the second half and scored a couple of extra tries themselves. I've seen one of the tries, which has appeared on my social media over the course of the past 24 hours, and that was scored by McCourt, and it is a fantastic try. So basically, Loughborough Hornets break from inside their own 20-metre line. It's our good friend Frank King who makes the break, and he puts this sumptuous round-the-corner pass of a defender that's coming in into the onrushing McCourt, who then seems to zip between two more defenders and go under the post. It's a fantastic try. If you do get to see that one, it is worth, checking out.
It's going to be interesting to see how those two defeats are going to affect Hunslet. Will they bounce back from that, or will, is it going to affect them? Because I think this is something that we've mentioned again a couple of weeks. Does a defeat in the amateur game, does it affect you mentally like it probably would in the professional game, where there's probably a lot more riding on it in some respects? But I know from the interview or you'd had with the coach after the game, I think it was last week, where they said they were, they knew that they were up there, they're the champions, that always everybody wants to beat them, and it looks as though those up there are going to give it a good go, and certainly in the last couple of weeks that has happened.
I mean, let's be honest as well, Loughborough are never far away from honours at the end of every season, are they? They are the most consistent of consistent Cumbrian sides, aren't they?
Yeah, they certainly are.
A side that has had consistency escape them for the bulk of the season is Wigan St Patrick's, and we're hinted at this. This is just an amazing result. So after losing out narrowly in the first half to Thatto Heath Crusaders, where they were losing by 16 points to 18, they only went and completely overturned that in the second half, scoring 20 points of their own and only conceding 4 to win by 36 points to 22. And a good mention here for Dave Thompson. So I've seen him a couple of times play. I think he's a fantastic centre. He's played at a much higher level. He came through the ranks at Wigan, did a stint with Warrington. He's also done, a stint with Whitehaven quite considerably in the Championship. He could still be playing that level of rugby league without a doubt. But at the moment, he finds himself playing for Wigan St Pat's, and he's a regular try scorer and provider as well. He's that sort of centre who you'd love to play on the outside of, because he'll draw the defence in, and either he's got the strength to burst through himself or he can pop a pass for his winger. So he scored 2 tries at the weekend, and that helped Wigan St Pat's to another notable victory. So they might have only won 3 games this season. Those 3 games have been against Loch Lane, they've been against Lee Miners, and now against Thatto Heath Crusaders. So it would suggest that they really do like the home comforts there of Clarrington Park.
Yeah, very much so. And I know Thatto Heath, they'll be kicking themselves there, and certainly will. But it's one of those things, isn't it, where you get a tie like that, where you're playing your neighbours, because Wigan St Pat's, they're a big name, there's no ifs and buts, and you certainly get a lot of people saying, whether you're playing Thatto Heath and you're from St Pat's, or if you're playing with St Pat's and you're from Thatto Heath, they'll be the games that you think, well, hang on, it's great to play in them, and it's great to go and watch them, whether it be at Thatto Heath or whether it's over there at St Pat's. You're going to get a good game, no matter where they are in the league. Yeah, you're always going to get a good game.
The rivalries are something else, aren't they?
Very much.
And I don't know how you're feeling, because you're like, you've watched a little less community rugby league than I have over the years. So I get excited by a lot of these, clashes that end up taking place week in, week out. Yeah. As I go through the fixtures, and people listen to me every week and must be thinking, he's getting excited again, and he's only talking about Shawcross Sharks. But it's because of, I know what's behind it, and exactly. I know what some of these rivalries mean. And particularly when you get your really consistent clubs that are up there to be shot at every single time.
Yeah,
and Thato are one of them, aren't they?
Yeah, and the other thing is as well, Dave, is that, with a lot of these teams as well, a lot of the players that are in the teams, I would say 9 times out of 10 they've probably played for the other team that they're playing against, because that's the way the community game is. You could be playing maybe 1 or 2 seasons at one club, and then suddenly, over you go. You're playing for another. You might have friends who have moved and gone over there, and that's the difference and the beauty of it in that sort of sense.
Never used to be that case, by the way. You used to have people that would just play the whole career. The whole community career with one club. But you're right, there is a lot more movement these days than there was. I mean, we've looked at team sheets this season that have contained ex-East Leeds players playing for other clubs in Yorkshire, haven't we? Same as, there's a couple of lads that were playing for Crosfields at the weekend that have previously played with other community clubs. I can think of one from Thato, one from Lee Miners, so it does happen. You're right, there's a certain amount of movement these days. And of course, there's our good friend Danny Cassidy, who's, moved a couple of times over the last couple of seasons. But you mentioned about teams kicking themselves. York Acorn are going to be really kicking themselves. They are playing some super stuff at the moment, and they just got edged out by Siddle. So this game was 16 points to 12 at half time, and Siddle just scoring the crucial try when it mattered to take the game, 22 points to 20. They are playing some really good stuff at the moment, though, and I make that a couple of wins on the bounce since they've had the changing coach at Siddle.
Yeah, I must admit, York Acorn, I mean, we've been on about them again over the last couple of weeks, and Siddle for other reasons to a certain extent. And I think I mentioned last week, well, how would they be? How would a change of coach affect them negatively? But obviously, no. A 2-point win is a win at the end of the day, isn't it?
Any win's a win.
Exactly.
But York Acorn, making their own place a real fortress that they defend with everything, don't they? And that's really good to see. They've had some really positive results so far this season, and I certainly, I'm putting in that bracket of one to watch over the second half of the season. Actually, I'm calling it now. York Acorn are a team to look out for. They're a team to be feared heading into the second half of the season. Into Division 1, we've got a succession of excellent games to comment on. I'll just give you the result, first of all, of the first one that's on my list. Crosfields 14, Stanningley 34. I'll tell you all about that one in just a few minutes' time. Egremont Rangers have suddenly burst their way back into form. They accounted for Skirler by 44 points to 6. That is a huge win.
It is, yeah.
A hat-trick from Aaron Turnbull as well, proving a real difference. He's a great player, by the way. A really good forward. He's played for the England Community Lions setup over the last few years. And I'm very, very surprised that he's not had the call to go and play professionally yet. Maybe he has. And maybe, because as I say, a lot of these players, particularly in Cumbria, they've got very good jobs, so they might only look at turning professional, as it was, much later than you might expect. So they can say, I'll give it a go. I've done it. I can do it. So many of those guys can. It's whether they want to. And we do what you were mentioning before about, players swapping sides, etc. Doesn't happen as much in Cumbria. Not quite as much in Cumbria, so a lot of those lads that have come through Egremont, they're now playing together in the first team. So, they are a cracking club, by the way, Egremont Rangers, and running into this really good run of form. Heworth also keeping up the pressure on the top 2 or 3 clubs in the division as well, winning by 34 points to 16 away at Featherstone Lions. Again, really, really close at half-time, this one. Only 8 points between the sides. Heworth having a stormer of a second half. And we can say it's a stormer of a second half as well for Ulton Raiders. They were leading against Clockface Miners, who have made a real good fist, by the way, of Division 1 so far. Just 8 points to 6. And they pulled away quite spectacularly in the second half to eventually win that one by 36 points to 6.
The thing is with that, Parky, Ulton Raiders are another one of those we say going under the radar. They're second, and I mean they're only just behind West Bowling, but they've hardly got much publicity as it were, or much hurrah or fanfare.
Yep.
You look at Clockface Miners. I mean, they're stuttering. They'll have a few good results, some real great performances, and then they'll stutter a little bit. I mean, they're just sort of tucked in the middle of the pack, as it were. But certainly, Ulton Raiders. I mean, that's going to be a good one. Ulton Raiders against West Bowling. That was going to be.
Well, if you think about it, I went to the other game between those two sides. It was held at West Bowling.
Yeah.
And on that day, Ulton were nowhere to be seen. They got steamrolled. But I'm sure that, as you say, when the two sides meet up again a little bit later in the season, there's going to be fireworks. That is going to be a really, really good game to keep your eyes out
Very
for.
much.
This one sounded like a really good game as well. I've got to thank my mate A.D. O'Sullivan, because he was getting me all excited. He sent me a text message and said, Dave, there's 10 minutes left in this one. Pilkington Rex are winning by 22 points to 6. I'm thinking, surely that's game, set and match. I'd even gone and done my interviews, to be honest, afterwards, in the mind that West Bowling have been upset by Pilkington Rex. I'm talking about what a fantastic competition Division 1 is. It's a fantastic competition, but Eddie, you could have updated me on what happened in that last 10, 15 minutes.
I was with him last night as well. He was telling me, he says, if you ever seen a team snatch defeat from the jaws of victory.
And we've often praised Kieran Napper for his goal kicking. He couldn't hit a barn door with a banjo this season, could he? He's missed quite a few goals, it would be fair to say, over recent weeks.
Yeah.
I'm taking nothing away from him because he's a fantastic player in his own right. But ultimately, if you're scoring 5 tries at home, you should be winning the game, shouldn't you? That's ultimately what's happened there. But you can't take anything away from this West Bowling side. They've found a win when everybody expected a defeat, and yours truly was actually telling people that's how it happened. So you know something, Eddie? Don't send me any texts again about what's going on in your games. I'll pick up the results later on, mate. But yeah, a crackerjack of a performance, that one, for West Bowling in the last 20 minutes. So that brings you into sort of focus of what's happened in Division 1. I'll talk you through the game that I was at, which was over at Crosfields. So, as I mentioned, the final score, Crosfields 14, Stanningley 34. And 3 tries in the final 17 minutes put Stanningley clear of the plucky hosts in an entertaining National Conference Division 1 game at Crosfield. The win sees Stanningley in 5th place in the competition, level on points with Egremont Rangers, Heworth and Skirler. Early on, there was little to choose between the sides, with Crosfields having the better of play, before centre Luke Walker found a gap in the defence and swerved away from the cover for a spectacular opening try from 60 metres out. It came 5 minutes after a wide kick proved too big for wing Corey Lee to get on the end of. Danny Cassidy added the goal. It wasn't long before Stanningley were level when prop Stephen Welton hulked his way over from close range from Luke Townsend's pass and Ben Selby converted. The visitors again scored shortly after through winger Nathan Curry, but the teams were well matched for much of the rest of the half before a try right on half-time by Townend and a Selby goal gave Stanningley a 16 points to 6 advantage. Crosfields raised their game in the second half, with hooker John Whittaker and standoff Joe Barnes starting to run the show, and were rewarded with a close-range score from Corey Lee after Barnes and Jamie Abram linked. Then Lee quickly claimed another for Crosfields in the 52nd minute to trail just 16 points to 14. Next came a try for Cian Simpson when he raced through on a lofted kick and took possession ahead of Abram before an emphatic finish. Selby nudged his side 8 points clear with his 3rd conversion. But the crucial moment came for Stanningley after 63 minutes. First, Jack Sykes brought down the right, and although he was hauled down thanks to a fine combination tackle 10 metres from the line, Selby picked up out of dummy half and shot past 2 bamboozled defenders. That made it 26-14 to the visitors, who then had a makeshift home pack on the back foot. Crosfield's cause also wasn't helped when they lost Joe Barnes shortly after a brilliant solo run almost brought a try. Stanningley then claimed 2 further tries in the last 10 minutes. The first went to hard-running Sam Savage, who blasted through the defence. Then a touchline dash from Selby saw the winger pass on to fullback Adam Butterill, and he raced over. Neither were converted, but Stanningley were good value for their 34 points to 14 success, and Cassidy was sin-binned with just minutes remaining. So that was for a bit of a high tackle. I gotta come to his defence here though. It was completely reactionary.
Yeah.
And he couldn't do anything else. The player was sort of ducking, trying to duck away, and he's already raised and come at him.
Yeah.
So, yes, it deserved a sin bin, but nothing more. I know certainly there was a lot of people on the touchline I was on for the second half who were saying it was one of the worst things that they'd ever seen in a rugby league field. Nowhere near. Nowhere near. It's nowhere near Morgan Knowles anyway. So, it's definitely, it deserved a card. Danny admitted it afterwards, said, it was perhaps a little bit clumsy, but he couldn't do anything else.
Yeah.
But cracking game, cracking day for it as well, Steve.
Yeah, I agree. That's 2 Saturdays on the trot that have been absolutely glorious. I mean, certainly from a watching point of view, I certainly wouldn't have wanted to have. I certainly wouldn't want to have been playing, I must admit.
That's a really good point, actually. I was prepared this weekend. I had my hat. If you recall last week, I was saying about how I'd ended up getting sunburned and going all red and blotchy and sticking on the after sun. I wasn't going to repeat that, to be fair. Right, Division 2. Shall I run through the results and you can tell us about the game?
Yeah, I think we'll do it the same sort of way, yeah.
No problem. So, Barrow Island 6, Shawcross Sharks 38. That's an outstanding win for Shawcross Sharks on the road at Barrow Island, who don't seem to be finding the same level of consistency that they had for much of last season. And it's that man Tomlinson who is consistently the difference for Shawcross Sharks. He's a highly skilled back row forward. Who could also play prop, no problem whatsoever, and he scored 2 tries and kicked 7 goals. I mean, that's a superb return, isn't it?
We talk about goal kickers week in and week out in this show, and it's and as we've seen before, if you get that sort of consistency, you win games. If you don't, you lose games, and we've spoke about a couple already, haven't we?
A really close encounter at Dewsbury Celtic, who actually led by 14 points to 0 at half time in their game against Normanton Knights. But it was a scoreless second half for the hosts, and Normanton Knights came off the deck to nearly snatch a result. 2 tries from Jacob Crossland, and in fact goals from Crossland and Barker eventually, just meaning that they came up short. Dewsbury Celtic scoring tries through Kelly, Copley and Thomas, with Copley kicking a goal, and that goal proving the decisive bit in that game. Then we've got to compliment Dewsbury Moor Maroons. They've now won 8 games out of 9 at the start of the season. They welcome Martyn Warriors, who have been much improved over recent weeks, and they had a tough encounter, eventually winning through by 28 points to 4. And the impressive thing about this Maroons side is that you don't often see players with multiple tries. So they spread the tries and spread the play right across the team, which I think is something really good. It's very dangerous. Yeah. It suggests that anybody can score. So they won that one by 28 points to 4. And finally, we can talk positively about East Leeds. They accounted for Saddleworth Rangers by 32 points to 16. Couple of tries there for Tomlinson. Great to see as well a couple of players back for East Leeds who's been missing for much of the campaign. And who knows, this could be the start of the recovery.
Yeah, I must admit, when I saw that result after, obviously last week they couldn't even get a team together. And then obviously some of the results that we'd seen, when I saw that, I thought, but the fact that they scored 32 points was, fantastic. And, only conceding 16. I mean, I know they'll want to get that lower, But in the context of things of where their season is at the moment, that is a really, really defining result, I think.
Yeah, so let's see whether they can continue going on for the rest of the season. Yeah. But you mentioned about the Clash of the Titans that you was at. This certainly had that feel about it in Division 2. Sharlston Rovers 18, Waterhead Warriors 24, Steve.
Yeah, well, I was down at Monk's Sports Club for a second consecutive season, and again it was a consecutive week, and it was blazing sunshine again, and I was there to watch, as you said, the NCL Division 2 top of the table clash between leaders Waterhead Warriors, who are undefeated so far this season, only a draw blotting a possible 100% record as they visited third place Sharlston Rovers, who were actually guarding a 100% home record. And it was a former Warrington Wolves back rower who scored the deciding try as Sharlston Rovers lost their 100% record. Went down 24 points to 18. Ireland international Danny Bridge, 30, the younger brother of ex-Wire centre Chris Bridge, crossed for the killer touchdown after Rovers had twice fought back to level the score in a high-quality National Conference League Division 2 encounter. Rovers trailed 12-0 in the first half and 18-12 after the break, but matters were all square until Bridge bounced off a Rovers defender and scored between the posts. Scorers for Sharlston were Adam Files, Declan Leonard and Harry Files, and Ben Dixon added 3 conversions, while for Waterhead, Danny Bridge, Callum Murphy, Danny Perks, and a penalty try, would you believe, Parker? Along with 4 goals from Kieran Dean, saw to come out successful. Rovers head coach Billy Sheen said it was a tough one to take. I felt that we went into the game a little nervous as they have a lot of talent in their squad that have played at a high level. But once we got into it, our boys realised it was there for the taking. We must have defended for around 30 minutes of the first half and only conceded 2 tries. One was a scoot and the other was a penalty try. We were outstanding and the game was there to win, but it wasn't meant to be. I thought every player was brilliant and it was a great game to watch. We'll take a lot of confidence from this moving forward, and I believe we can go on a bit of a run now. Confidence is high and the lads are playing some fantastic rugby. We have a week off and then we'll get back to it and hopefully start challenging the top 2 once again. Warriors, they were workmanlike and composed and controlled for most of the first half, but were shaken when Sharlston scored before and after the break. Scoring went a bit tit for tat after that, and to be fair, if Rovers had shown a little less indiscipline and the same composure Waterhead did in the first half, they probably would have took this match. Waterhead's Matt Holland, dangerous tackle, and Sharlston's Declan Leonard descent was sin bin late on in the second half. I'm sure these 2 teams will be in the mix at the end of the season fighting for honours, but for me, for the game, for the day, for the man of the match, was Waterhead prop Phil Joy with an immense 80-minute performance after a 3-game break. And as I said, it was that Syrian heat that just was immense all day. So the final score was Sharlston Rovers 18, Waterhead Warriors 24. Phil Joy was unbelievable.
He's an impressive performer, really consistent, and some would argue again he's another that could still be playing Championship Rugby League. He could certainly still be playing professionally for Oldham. I think he made something like 150 appearances for the Roughheads, so he knows his way around the rugby league field, that's for sure. But I like it as well that 2 of the lads that I know from the England Community Lions also scored in Perks the hooker, and then Callum Murphy, who was a tremendous tourist.
It was funny actually. Well, funny is probably not the right word, because I was actually still behind Billy when they scored that scoot from dummy half, and he stood there and it was near the touchline. And you could hear him shouting, "He's going to scoot, he's going to scoot, he's going to scoot." And he did exactly what Billy said, and he went and he scored. And I won't tell you what he said when he turned around.
It was unbroadcastable, was it?
It was. But you could see the frustration because he just called and called. And to be fair, and he's right there, the first half they defended really, really well. Much the same as Waterhead did it, because the first score only came after about, I think it was 29 minutes, and you would have thought, or you could have thought, again, because of the temperatures, there could have been scoring left, right and centre from anywhere. But it wasn't to be. And then in that second half, it just looked, certainly when Woolston scored it first thing in the second half, or early doors in the second half, then Water looked a bit gassed. You thought, are they going to run out of steam here? But fortunately, I think, with them getting back again, and scored again, and then it went, as I said, it went for tit for tat, and just a few little daffs, little niggly things that Woolston were doing. They're in discipline. They got marched, a little bit of back chat. They got marched, and obviously there was the descent, which obviously doesn't help because you space is a premium, and if you're going to give more people space on a rugby pitch, they're going to take advantage. But as I said at the end of that report, these two are going to be in the mix, and it's going to be interesting. And if if Wolverhampton can tighten up that indiscipline, they'll give them a few a shock.
Again, I think it's really interesting looking at the Division 2 table as it stands at the moment. So you've got Waterhead and Dewsbury Maroons now out on top, 16 points each. Woolston just 2 points back from that. Shawcross 3 points back from them. But interestingly enough, they've got 2 games in hand, so they win both of those and they go to 15 points in the league, which, as I say, is just beneath the top 2. And then you look at the rest of the division, hardly anything to pick between any of these sides, in fairness. You've got Wigan St Jude's 4 wins, 4 losses. Barrow Island 4 wins, 6 losses. Normanton Knights 3 wins, 6 losses. Saddleworth Rangers 3 wins, 7 losses. Myton Warriors 2 wins, a draw and 6 defeats. East Leeds now with 2 wins and 6 defeats. And Milford bottom of the pile as it stands with 1 win from 8.
Yeah, it's going to be good to watch each Leeds to see how they're going now, if they can go on a bit of a run and string some wins together and move up that table. Because, as you say, the space there, certainly up to Dewsbury Celtic, who were 10 points. I mean, a couple of wins, it could move you up, close up in and around that sort of area. But there's a little gap opening up, I think, now with those top 4, possibly 5. Which is, again, they're all playing some good rugby. And I agree about the Dewsbury Maroons, but Shawcross Sharks, for me, you just got to keep an eye on them, because they've got played 7, won 5, drawn 1, and only lost 1.
Really good form, isn't it?
Yeah.
Really good form. Right, let's talk Division 3, shall we? So, it was Driglington 22, Lee East 36. And if you remember a couple of weeks ago, when I spoke to Kieran Prescott over at Lee East, he'd scored 4 tries all season up to that point. He scored 4 tries in that 180 minutes. Phenomenal effort from the lad. I've said it before, he's a guy that I enjoy watching play, because you just think he could break through. He looks like he's going to break tackles. He looks like he's going to do something. He's a Bobby Dazzler.
Yeah.
His footwork and pace combined. Really good, really good. Ellenborough Rangers, they defeated Beverley by 36 points to 12. Now, Beverley had a fantastic start to the season. They were playing Division 2 rugby last year, so they were expected to perhaps be amongst the front runners for this competition. And they've been humbled a couple of times already this season. I still feel that there's a lot to come from that Beverley side, and I suggest that they'll be in the mix come the end of the season. But they've had 5 defeats in 9 games, which, wasn't part of the plan. I don't think he was expected that. So Ellenborough Rangers successful on that day by 36 points to 12. Millham are playing some fantastic stuff at the moment. They played against Hensingham, and a lot of money raised as well for the Logan and Gary Hearts Fund, which is a fantastic cause, which I think we talked about a few weeks ago now, that has been launched in the aftermath of losing both Gary McMahon and Logan Holgate, who both passed away. And as a result, the families of both of those people wanted to do something. They wanted to make a difference in rugby league. So they've set up this Heart Fund with the idea of raising money so that basically clubs and teams can get themselves checked out for heart defects. A fantastic cause. It's something that, you know, it is close to my heart as well, pardon the pun. And both of these sides raised a lot of money at the weekend for that cause. And the Northwest version of the Gary and Logan Heart Fund gets underway this coming Sunday when there's a walk up Rivington Pike.
That's right. I saw there's a YouTube video where the families were promoting and telling everybody about, you know, sort of getting letting sort of the amateur game or giving the amateur game the opportunity to get checked out from a heart point of view. Like they say, from a semi-professional point of view, you know, it's a given to a certain extent that gets done, that gets checked. But obviously, I mean, there's the same pressures that, you know, that are put on the players who are playing in the amateur game. Probably a little bit more so because, I mean, no disrespect, you know, we all play it for the love of the game, so probably not as fit as what, you know, you would like to be. So, yeah, I think it's absolutely excellent.
And it was nice to see a couple of the lads that I went over to Italy with in the Logan Holgate warm-up shirts that they've gone and got. And Rio McQuiston had a day to remember as well. He scored 2 tries. Good player, him.
Yeah,
really
I remember
good.
him from the you know, the finals over there.
Really good lad as well. Him and Jack Newbegin make a really good team together. But yes, Millom 46, Hensingham 10. Oldham St Anne's had a crushing defeat of Seaton Rangers. They won by 70 points to 8 with 4 tries from Cashin, 3 tries from Barron and 2 tries each from Basnett and Fletcher. Goal split between Skillen, who kicked 2, and Barron, who kicked 7. Busy afternoon for Barron, that, wasn't it? 3 tries and 7 goals.
Yeah, especially, like we said, certainly in that heat as well. But that's a big score. That is a huge score, isn't it?
Yeah, unfortunately, Seaton Rangers, I think we talked about them doing it a bit tough this season.
Yeah.
I know that they have lost some players, and like a lot of teams, they're trying to plug the gap with younger players. So over time, it will get better.
Yeah.
But these are harsh times that they're living in at the moment, and I do believe that they had a player that broke an arm, Seaton Rangers, who stayed on the field knowing that his team was short.
I saw that,
and he put in a real shift.
Yeah, I saw that mentioned on social media. But yeah, it's difficult. We've mentioned this, and certainly if you get a good set of players that have come through, and suddenly the local professional teams, you think, oh yeah, well they're very good. We'll take a few of those. Then it does. When that happens, it can strip you bare in that respect. And that's no disrespect to the lads that are left and the new lads who are trying the best. But again, you're spot on there, mate. It will stand them in good stead. They just got what they've got to do.
It's also ride the storm, isn't it?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, because it's looking to the future. And you know, next year when you're playing these same teams, you think, well, hang on, I know what it's like now to play these teams. You know, yeah. But they are doing it tough. You're totally right there, mate.
Got to say, Oldham St Anne's, though, I mean, they're really setting the pace, aren't they, at the top end of Division 3? They've gone and scored, 318 points in 9 games. So they're certainly finding the form, aren't they?
Yeah, and they've certainly not showed any sympathy, have they?
No.
I mean, they've been ruthless. Okay, I know Seaton at the bottom and they're the top. Well, they've put the foot on the gas and let's have a bit of this. Because you don't know, same as you say, later on, that points difference might be the clincher.
And then the final game in Division 3 that we haven't yet talked about, this was played on Sunday afternoon. You may think this is a bit weird. Why was this game played on a Sunday? Well, it was actually a forerunner to Doncaster taking on the London Scholars in League One.
Yeah.
So Bentley up sticks and moved over to the Eco Power Stadium, I think it's called these days, something like that anyway. Used to be the old Keepmoat Stadium.
Keepmoat, that's what I remember it as.
That's what I know it as, yeah. So I've probably given a couple of people a mention that maybe I shouldn't have done there. But, you know, they can certainly chuck some money our way to the podcast, can't
exactly that, yeah.
Yeah,
exactly.
so we'll mention anything if somebody's got to pay us.
I remember the first time I saw that stadium. Because obviously it's close to the motorway, isn't it?
Yeah.
As you're coming back, and just looking across, and I thought, I wonder what that one is. And it was only when I got a little bit further down and I saw the advertising for Keepmoat that. Then straight away I knew it was Doncaster. But yeah, it's a tiny little stadium.
It's a cracking ground.
Yeah. It's a good template for as a starter for 10. If you want a good ground, because it looks as though if they do well and it needs expanding, that they've got that area to do that.
Yeah, I mean, I think it sits about 15,500.
That's not bad at all.
Which is good. I mean, even New Knowsley Road only sits 17,000, 18,000.
17.5, 18.
Maybe 18.5. Yeah. So. But yeah, in the game, let's get back to the game, shall we? Bentley won by 30 points to 6. Couple of tries there for Marshall. Croswell kicking 3 goals as well. And they led by 20 points to 6 at half time. So that's an impressive win, that. Especially judging that Eastmoor have been a team that's been in form over recent weeks. I think they strung together 4 successive wins a little bit earlier on in the campaign. So, they've done pretty well there. Fixtures for this coming weekend. Well, that sees in the Premier Division, Thatto Heath Crusaders host Rochdale Mayfield. In Division 1, Featherstone Lions host West Bowling. Introse Bridge are at home to Thornhill Trojans. Stanningley go across to Ulton Raiders, which looks like a real pick of those fixtures.
And this next one, I might have a bit of news for you on this next one.
Yeah, Pilkington Rex playing against Crossfields. Switch to Friday night.
Yes, Friday Night Lights. That's what we like. Absolutely superb.
Could this be one that you might be setting your sights upon?
Could well be. I must admit that this is going to be a good game between because these two teams at the moment are sort of in that area of they need a kickstart, don't they? Mm-hmm. To reignite the season, to get it back on track. So this is going to be a good one. And obviously, it's a local derby, isn't it? Talking
about local derbies, Division 2 as a cracker there. Dewsbury at Moor Maroons taking on Dewsbury Celtic. And then we've got Milford up against Normanton Knights. Wigan St Jude's hosting Cross Sharks. And I'd like to be a fly on the wall over there as well, to be honest, at Wigan St Jude's. And then finally, but by no means least, Lee East at home against Driglington. And they're playing each other just 7 days apart from before. So it's a real curious one, that. How will they respond? Will Driglington raise the game? Now they're heading over to Lee East. Will Lee East get it so as lightning strikes twice? Will Kieran Prescott score another 4 tries? Will he score at all, or will they do the homework this week and stop him from scoring? It's easier talking about it than it is doing it. Right, so we've gone through the fixtures, we've gone through the games that we were at. Let's have a little bit of reaction, shall we? So as I mentioned before, I was over at the Crossfields versus Stanningley game, and I had the pleasure of having a chat with Ashton Goulding, who's the coach of Stanningley. He's been there for a few years now. And, I managed to get a really interesting question in to him just at the end of the interview. Okay, I'm alongside Ashton Goulding. We've just been seeing your side successful today, 34 points to 14. Got to say that last 20 minutes was what won the game for you, wasn't it?
Yeah, we practice a certain way where we just understand that it's all about building a process, but within the process, it's amateur rugby league. So I like my players to express themselves as long as they're willing to do the hard work if it doesn't come off. And we saw there a number of times. I think we left a few points out there still. Against a very stern and aggressive Crossfield side. So I think we understood the task coming over here was going to be hard. The consistency of our team I'm questioning, which they're starting to react to, and the league is very tight. So it's important that we come away from home and start picking off a few of these wins.
I mean, this is, notoriously the toughest of the NCL divisions, I think.
Yeah.
When you look at how all the teams, there's very little between top and bottom, isn't there?
Yeah, you look above us into the Premier and you're thinking, I mean, unofficially, everyone who coaches or goes through amateur knows there's a little bit of backhand deals going about to secure people's immediate futures at that club. And you look below us and it's a little bit less consistency and commitment. So Division 1, I would say, has a lot of it does have a lot of competitive teams in the nature of it's so tight because everyone is at the same level. You know, that they're playing for the love of the club, and any team that usually gets promoted into the Premier usually struggles, and that's because it's all about the love, and then the technical ability follows. Whereas what I'm trying to build at Stanningley is a little bit of technical ability now, so if that eventuality does happen, we're kind of prepared for them tough encountered games, and when we're blowing teams away at the last 20, actually in the Premier it might be the last 2 minutes. Yes. And it's about just building a process, not just for now, not just for 3 years, but for the next 10 years, because you know, I'll openly say I'd love to come back and play for Stanningley when I finish my career, so that would be something that I want to play in, the Premier League, Premier Division. But you know, looking on to today, it's literally, when you're playing in this division, it's you might win today but you could lose tomorrow, and it's about the team that you can field. It's not about who you can pick, it's about who's available. And different sides travel. So you know, we've travelled quite light today with Essence, with you know, second team players, as you'd call them. But equally, they've all been part of the process and training, and they've bought in, and the attitude and effort has been outstanding today. So I can't grumble with it.
It looked like as well you was playing a bit busted at times, with guys being dragged in playing all positions. You know, you're ending up on the wing, for example.
Yeah, no, you know, we had a lot of injuries today. It's not. You know, while the scoreline reflects, you know, we blew away at the end, it was a very close game the whole 60, 70 minutes, and the last 10 minutes went in our favour. And I've been in games where that flip of the coin goes in their favour, so I like to think the processes that we bought into really honed in and got us the win. But we came here busted. You know, I'm not going to say it and underplay it. You know, I'm very respectful in the fact that they are busted as well. It's the time in the year where everyone goes on holidays, and so every team in the Division 1 is busted. So when you're saying it like that, it's just a fair, even game. And you know, I think it was for 60, 70 minutes, and then at the end, you know, we just came away with a little bit more smarts on the end and a little bit more execution on the players.
When I've spoken to coaches up and down the NCL this season, they've all said that same thing, that consistency. You know, so if you can name consistent sides, you generally tend to be finding the consistency on the field, don't you?
Yeah, no, look, I believe in two things. I think first of all, you got to have commitment. You got to have commitment to keep turning up, or you got to have commitment to start the process. You know, we have a dream at Stanningley to get into the Premier. That's the commitment there. I've committed to the boys, they've committed to me. It's the consistency that'll get you there. And I think it's important to recognise commitment and consistency are two different things. I can say I want to do something, I'm committing to it, but I might not be consistent enough at it. Whereas I've got a team of boys now who are consistently turning up training. It's just at the moment we've got a few people on niggles. I've got about 10 injuries. I've got about 3 people on holiday, and I've got 2 people who are working fire service that they can't get out of, and you know, the servicemen. So we've got a big squad, and to select from that, I've still got a big squad. So
when you put it like that, though, you've got 15 people missing, haven't you?
Yeah, but in essence, yeah, we do. But equally, everyone does. And I think it's important to recognise that, you know, this team today won this game. But if you looked at the start of the season, this wasn't the team we started with, and it's squads that win competitions. It's teams that win games. So we're looking at the bigger picture. You know, it's a great win today. We'll enjoy it. The boys will enjoy the bus back. But it's the bigger picture. You know, they're going to come to our place. They're going to remember this, and they're probably going to try to put some points on us. So it's literally, on this day, we came out victorious. But in the Division 1, every dog has a day.
I know when I was looking at the game, I was really impressed with Sykes at 13. I thought the work that he put in was tremendous on both sides of the ball.
Yeah.
Was there any other standouts from your point of view?
Yeah. I think, again, because I coach them and I've seen how they've developed, I think Sykes has been one that's developed over time now, and he's developed really quite well. But, you know, you've got the back rower, Kai Simpson. I think, you know, he came from East Leeds, who have developed him really well, and hopefully I can just add a little bit to his game, and putting him in the back row today was a little bit of a different role for him, and I think he handled it perfectly. I think the game plan against these really worked, and it suited him. Just a go forward, aggressive middle who doesn't want to be put down. And you know, we had some great performances from the other back rower Beans, Kieran Richards. So some really good performances. Now, some people who we'd expect to have good performances probably lapped off. Our right winger, I think he needs to have a big reaction next week. I think, you know, out of position, a little bit of attitude problems within his own head and his own game. But then he brought himself back into the game by scoring a try and breaking down the right wing. So, you know, we've got players like understand they've had a bad game, but then they make it right on the day instead of moaning about it after.
Yeah, and I suppose that's what the good thing is, isn't it? I get the feeling you're enjoying being a coach as well, mate.
I love it. Like, I don't get paid for it. You know, I don't get paid for it. It costs me money to be here. You know, I own a coffee shop, which I could be at now and potentially earning some money from. But I don't. I like to think that if we can all just give a little bit back to the place that actually gave us the opportunity to propel ourselves in, not just in the game, but actually in my life. You know, my identity for a long time in my life was a rugby player. Now I like to think I'm a little bit more than a rugby player. I'm a dad, I'm a son. I've started to think I'm a business owner instead of just a rugby player. But equally, it's important that we are able to come to the flipping grassroots of rugby league and understand and feel everything with everybody. And I think it's important that I am allowed to do that. I think in a lot of sports you're not allowed to do that. And for me, these are the boys that I've grew up with. You know, I played with them going through Stanningley. Now I've got the honour to coach them. I'm developing young youth through. I get such a gratification when they get signed and go to Bradford, Leeds, Castleford, Wakefield. I feel like a proper coach. And, you know, that's nothing to do with me playing rugby. I just give my time. And I've said it before and I'll say it again. I've committed to the boys and I've done it for 5 years now. I committed it 5 years ago. My consistency in actions will prove worthwhile when we make it to where we need to make it.
Bit of a strange question, this then. You
Sure.
know, so what have you learned in that 5 years? That if you could go back now and say to that Ashton who took the job 5 years ago, 2 pieces of advice, what would you tell him?
First one, that professional rugby league and amateur rugby league are 2 completely different sports. Completely different sports. Don't treat them as the same. Second one is relationships are more important than winning. So the relationships you build with these men, you have the potential to steer their life in the right direction, indirectly, because I don't go in there and preach to them about flipping, don't do drugs or don't do this. I just go in there and coach. But I have a indirect thing with keeping them in there, off the streets, on a Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday. And that, in essence, is something that I would go back and say, look, the results are important, but you have such an impact on people's lives, you don't realise it. And even just being around Stanningley, you know, I get involved with the under-13 girls who play on Thursdays. I get involved with the under-15s lads who's just gone and beat Driggleton at home. And, you know, the club is a family. And it's important that we hone in on that. And the relationships you build, yeah, you'll get some good results, but the relationships you build within a club, as every club will say, they're the ones you take through life. So
I would agree, you know, because it's like if you go on tour with somebody, you know, and you hold that close to your heart, don't you? And that you carry those people straight through your lives, then, don't you?
yeah, but they carry me. Yeah. You know, they're not just my teammates. You know, I like to stress it that they don't play for me. They don't play for me. They play for the badge. The badge is, we're one of the oldest amateur clubs around. You know, they play for the badge, and that badge represents so much more than me, them. Kevin Sinfield, Jamie Jones, we kind of say it all the time, we're custodians of the shirt, and we are at Stanningley because there's always going to be another person. So why not be the best that there's ever been? Why not get to the first? No one's ever got to the Prem in Stanningley. So let's get there, let's be the best that we've ever been. And then on the back of it, then you can reflect and have a good time.
I look forward to following the journey further because it's only part done, isn't it?
Listen, the journey will be done when we win the Prem and I'm playing at Stanningley. That's my journey done, and I've committed to it. I'll be consistent with my actions, and we'll see how far we get. But no, thank you very much.
Ashton Golding there, and fantastic to hear from him. So eloquent in his speaking, really articulate, and he's a guy that loves his rugby league and wants to play for Stanningley in the Premier Division.
I look at it this way: if I'm not wrong, isn't Jamie Jones Buchanan a sort of like an old boy there as well?
He is, yeah.
Yeah, so they've got some good names there. And Ashton Goulding, he's well spoken, isn't he? Do you know what I mean? He's one of these who, when he speaks, you listen. There are some sort of pundits, as we might say, that are out there at the moment, and you think, hang on, you're just pushing it a bit too hard here. I mean, when I've heard him when he's been on, and obviously it's a newish thing to a certain respect from him, the way where he fits in from now and there. But he's really good and great to listen to. And in that interview again, it just showed how good he is.
I thought I would test him a little bit when he was saying that he'd been coached there for 5 seasons, and I thought, I didn't realise it had been that long for starters, because, you know, well, everybody feels younger than me these days in rugby league, so maybe that's a setting or a sign of the times, as we say. But when he was talking, and he said, like, oh, I've been involved for 5 years now. I said, now, if you could give a bit of advice, 2 bits of advice to your younger self, what would you do? I thought that was, again, a really thought, because I just thought, I'm going to ask this, because I'm sure he'll have learned so much, and he seems to be one of these guys that just absorbs information and takes everything in.
Yeah. And we spoke about this before, Parky, about players who have been in the game and go back. I think, if I'm not wrong, the game that I went to watch on Saturday, was it Lee Jewett was in there? We were on about him sort of going back. Obviously, I'm missing. He's still well in his career, but like you say, soaking that up, but I'm sure he'll be the first one to impart all that wisdom back to the youngsters, back to the guys who are playing in his team, to look out for and pitfalls or things to help them, those types of things, which is what is needed. That's what the clubs themselves should be doing, should be helping these kids, not just taking them in, using them and okay, fair enough, you've not made the grade, but they should be helping them to develop. Who's to say they aren't going to come back later on? We've seen it before. Lads get picked up, and they may not be the best in the world, but they come back to the community game, a couple of seasons, get things under the belt, and hang on, you're suddenly the superstars because they've developed and moved on. I'm sure Ashton Golden is going to be one of these guys who sort of helps those guys there at Stanningley to improve as much as they can.
Now, I also caught up and got some losers' reaction. Can I say that? Runners-up reaction, losers' reaction. Some reaction from the losing side. So that was Crosfields. I caught up with their fullback, Jamie Abram. And I started by asking him sort of what his thoughts were on the game, and then moving on to how he's settling into the fullback position.
Okay, I'm joined by Jamie Abram. In the aftermath of Crosfields losing this one by 34 points to 14, got to say though, for over an hour you was well in that game.
Yeah, definitely. First half we was in it, but then second half we just didn't complete, and like dropping the ball in their half, and we didn't stick to the system really.
Yeah, because you put them under some good pressure, didn't you, and then seemed to move away from that.
Yeah, definitely. It was just like dropping the ball on second tackle or kicking on third tackle. We should have just grounded out the sets.
So how are you finding this season? Because it's your first stint at this particular level. How have you been travelling?
Yeah, I think we're doing all right. I think we've surprised a few teams, got a good bunch of lads. But in this league, you don't know, anyone can beat you.
It's such a close division, isn't it?
Yeah.
I know certainly I've been watching this over the last couple of years, this division, and anybody's capable of beating anybody.
Yeah, it's definitely. That's what I mean. You don't know who's going to win. Like, there's been teams beating us, then we beat the teams that they've lost against as well. So you just don't know. You just got to turn up every week.
Do you feel quite settled in your position here?
Yeah, definitely. Last year I was playing 9 and fullback, but I really like fullback. It gives me a bit more space.
You seem to be enjoying linking in and trying to put players together.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I enjoy it.
Yeah, looking up. Well, cheers for that. Who've you got next up?
Pilks. We've got Pilks next week.
Pilks.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
Big local derby.
Yeah.
That should be a good one, shouldn't it?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Right, I look forward to it.
Cheers, mate. Nice
Cheers,
one.
mate.
I do like getting the player's perspective, Steve. It's always interesting, and even if they don't talk an awful lot, you can still glean something from it.
Yeah, I think we've mentioned this before, how we think coaches, even coaches now in the amateur game, are twigging onto that bit of sort of like, not media training as such, but they know how to respond.
It's Parky's here. We're not telling him anything.
Yeah. but when the players get in there, you'd get a little bit more honesty. I mean, even in tones of voice, do you know what I mean? That comes across, which is great, and it's interesting because we're saying this about it's great to hear so that honesty coming through and the tone of the voice, etc. And you were speaking to lads who are 16 and 17 playing for England internationally to say, when you get interviewed, this is how you're gonna respond, and not telling them what to say, but how to be confident and how to say things specifically. So you could be at fault here, Parky. Do you realise this? Yes. You could be the downfall.
But it was great to have a catch up with him, and then because he's a decent player, and when we went and we watched that game last year when they played against Crosfields, if you remember, he played 9 in that game.
Yeah. And
he's now regular fullback.
Yeah.
Now, the two roles are completely different on a rugby field, aren't they? I mean, granted, your fullback tends to duck in at acting half at certain points in a game to probably give his 9 a rest. But there's a whole heap of difference, isn't there, in how you bring players into the game, etc., etc. So, really good to have a catch up with him. Right, so we've gone through the National Conference League. I've got to thank our guests as far as that section goes for this particular podcast. I want to take us in a completely different direction. So I want us to look at Yorkshire Men's League. And I had a fascinating chat with Sharlston Rovers pair, John Brewerton and Gordie Long. Now, you may be thinking, Sharlston Rovers, I've heard of them. So they've got fine pedigree in cup competitions. They've won so many Barley Yorkshire Cups. They've got to the Barley National Final 6 times. Where are they? Well, they're a little village that is about 2 or 3 miles away from Featherstone and about 5 miles away from Wakefield. So they're right in that area of Yorkshire which had coal mines and you know, part of that rich, I suppose, that rich seam of rugby league history. And they're a club that's been going a long, long time, as we'll find out in this interview. Okay, so as you know, here on the 13 Pro Am Community Rugby League Show, we love to catch up with different clubs, find out all about them, see what's going on, and run a bits of profiles, really, to be honest. And one of the clubs which has always interested me, to be honest, is Sharlston Rovers. And I've got 2 of the gentlemen that are involved at that club. I've got Gordie Long and I've got John Brewerton on the line. First of all, gents, welcome to the show. Good to have you with me. And I suppose, take me back to the beginning. How did the club start and when did it start?
I think we're pretty sure Sharlston were first recorded as playing rugby in the late 1800s.
Wow, so that would make you one of the oldest clubs, really, wouldn't it, then, in that case?
Yeah, we think likes of Millham are the oldest, but we're not that far behind them. There is records that they were playing around the late 1800s, so yeah, certainly over 100 years. Okay,
and how did that early sort of history sort of go? Was it organised leagues? You know, because I know certainly around the turn of the century there was like loads and loads of amateur clubs, as was. They joined the main setup, didn't they, and then all dropped off after a couple of years.
Yeah, I think there were a lot of clubs that joined the Rugby Football League, or whatever they were calling it then, and didn't fit the bill or found they were out of the depth. I think Sharlston might have been one of them.
Mm-hmm. So where does the current club sort of trace its roots back to?
We think they've played in the same spot in the village, certainly for well over 50 years.
Cracking. Okay, and tell us what Sharlston's like as a place. It's one of those traditional Yorkshire ex-pit villages, really, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a former mining village. There's been a lot of historical good players who've come through Sharlston or from Sharlston. I think we've got 3 Lance Todd Trophy winners that were from the village. Neil Fox.
Well, the greatest name of all, to be honest, that Neil Fox.
Yeah,
he was a Sharlston lad, was he?
Well, the whole family's from Sharlston. Yeah.
Right, okay.
Neil Fox, Carl Dooler, and Don Fox. I think they're the 3. I think John T. Parkins from Sharlston as well.
That's some claim to fame, that, isn't it? You know, when you think of it, because I mean, I've been to a couple of games at Sharlston. I was trying to think back to when my last visit to Sharlston was, and I think that it was a Barlow under-17s game between Yorkshire and Lancashire about 5 or 6 years ago. And in fact, I was going back to it because obviously I'm sporting the Lee colours. You know, I am a Lee fella, unfortunately,
Yep.
some might say. And that particular day was the day when Lee got relegated from Super League when Catalan beat them. You know, so I had mixed views on that day, to be honest. But it was a great day which we had, and I know that certainly everyone of the Lancashire committee was, really impressed with how the club had, the sort of show that the club had put on for that, which I'm thinking that that's going to be very much similar these days, that you always put on a bit of a show for people.
We try. We don't always get it right, but we try. I think if something's worth doing, it's worth doing it right, and we tend to do that at Sharlston if we can.
Yeah. And if I can just bring you into the conversation here, Gordie. I mean, when did you get involved at Sharlston?
Well, I lived in Sharlston for I've lived in Sharlston now for 25 years, but I never played for Sharlston because I was actually at Bramley, and then I ended up playing a bit of rugby union, and then I ended up playing for Dudley Hill. I ended up out there with a couple of my friends from Bramley, so, and then I just got approached to see if I fancied coaching, so doing a bit of coaching at Dudley Hill. So I think I've been up at club over 20 odd years now.
So the call eventually came for you to come home, did it?
Yeah, but being a street house lad, I was never going to play for Sharlston. You know, it one of them clubs what you hated with being that close, and street house and Sharlston were arch enemies kind of thing on the field.
This sounds like another interesting rivalry, to be honest. You know, so what was that club all about?
Street House Red Rose. It was just a pub side, and it were all the miners. And I think we set up and we ended up playing. We did really well. We ended up beating your Hull Aces and your Barrow Islands, who were the best team going at the time. They came, and I think they were buzzing to come to Street House. But when they came, they couldn't believe it because we had the tiniest little ploughed field you've ever seen in your life. We were on a big angle, and
yeah.
And they were the best team in the country. They were beating everybody at the time, but Barrow Island, and I think we beat them 15-16-0 at the time, and there were three young lads who we were only 16, just turned 17 when we started playing. But we had all the pit guys who worked at pit and all some great players.
I mean, it
was just a shame.
I do think it's a really interesting still to reflect back on those sort of times, you know, because being a lad from Leigh, obviously the mining communities around here were a huge part of the social structure, if you like, and then we've got prime example here of two villages. You've got Featherstone, Castleford just up the road. Again, massive communities with industrial workings.
With mining village, that's all they were in our villages, and every single person who worked, 99% worked down the pits. So it were really sad times when it closed, and there's been some hard times, but it were a brilliant atmosphere after games, and like you say, rivalry with Sharlston and Street House, and they all worked down the same pit, but they detested each other when they played. It was fierce. There were some great games.
So what happened with Street House, and how come Sharlston sort of survived where Street House didn't?
I think basically Street House had a team years and years back, and then they just went in pit strike.
Right.
So they all got together and we started playing, having a little game, touch and pass, and then we said, why don't we start a team? And that's how it started. And it only lasted about 5-6 years. People, they get the buzz for it, and you set a team up, and then after a bit it starts where people don't want to train or people don't want to turn up, and I think they ended up folding anyway. So, and that's the only reason I would have ever left Street House, and I actually ended up going to Westgate Rideau when we won Yorkshire Cup against Normanton. So I even went to Westgate before, believe it or not, before Sharlston, and I lived in Sharlston.
So have I been being a bit posh all these months when I've been saying Westgate Common? Should I be saying Westgate?
Westgate Common.
Westgate, right? Okay.
Yeah,
I'll have to remember this. Next time I'm reading Yorkshire Men's League results, because I'm sure people must go and they say, he's making it sound dead posh here.
I think that's what they do. It's not posh.
We've got a similar town on the doorstep here where it's Atherton. Everyone knows it as Atherton. Half of my family comes from it, but you hear it when it's mentioned on the radio or they talk about it on TV, and it's like, this is happening in Atherton.
Yeah.
It's where's that?
It's like Johnny will tell you exactly. Say he played for some local clubs in Wakefield, and they're only a mile apart, but it was really tough in them days. You get on it as kids now, and just they say, "Oh, it was an hard game," and me and Johnny just laugh at them.
Hard game.
They haven't really lived until when we used to play, to be fair, years back.
So, John, if I can come back to yourself here, tell us a little bit about your sort of rugby league journey then. I think Gordie's sort of suggested some of it there, hasn't he, mate?
Yeah, I started playing for a team in Wakefield, Walnut Warriors. Just a pub side.
Walnut
Played
Warriors
for
was
about
it? Did
10
you say?
years. In the it was the West Yorkshire League, the Sunday morning league, where kicked off at 11 o'clock. But if you were travelling anywhere, you were leaving home early morning, which were hard after the Saturday night. It was hard to get players to play. You were knocking on people's doors at 10 o'clock on a Sunday morning saying, come and play, come and play. Left there, moved around a bit. I went to Outward, started a side up. Albury. Had a year at Albury. I played at Peacock for a year. And then I ended up I got asked to go to Sharlston. A couple of lads that played there that I knew, Stuart and Tommy, they asked me to come up. I think that was the year before Gordie came as coach. In fact, it was the year before Gordie came as coach, so quite a while ago.
Yeah, yeah. And what were some of the highlights of your time playing for Sharlston then, Josh?
My time? Probably, football-wise, I used to run the second team at Sharlston, and we won the local cup a couple of times. We beat Upton both times at Bellevue. They were highlights for me personally, because Upton were a higher league side than us. Highlights. We went to Mill at second team. Went to Mill, and we went with 12 men, and a lad met us up there who were working in Birmingham. And he drove all the way up to Millham, played, and then went back to Birmingham at night. That was second team, and probably the best rugby day of my life. That were just from leaving Sharlston at morning to breaking down on motorway to pushing bus route services in snow.
Bus broke down as well.
Bus broke, yeah, a little minibus we had. I was driving up, and one of the players drove that down because I was having a drink. And we brought down at services at Warrington.
Oh, flipping heck.
We were pushing bus outsets to get it, bumping it off, and one of the lads fell in snow. It was just one of them days. Character building, we call it.
Character building. It sounds like one of those, as they always said, everybody's got a good book in them. It sounds like that's your book, to be honest, John. What happened on that day, and going up there as well, and stories where you've got meeting up with a lad who's driven all the way up from Birmingham. I mean that's some sort of commitment, that, isn't it? Particularly at the time.
That's what clubmen do. He was a very good first teamer. Then back in his career, he dropped down to the second team. Never ever if you said you needed to play, he'd just turn up. He'd never let you down. If he said he was going to be there, he was going to be there.
He never asked who you were playing either, John, did he?
No, I never even asked who you played. He just used to say, send me a postcode. So I regularly used to send it postcode to Sharlston. 2 days later, I drew back and said, this is Sharlston. I said, yeah, we're at home this week.
Who is this guy? I think he deserves a proper mention.
Stan Smith, Stan of Yorkshire, we used to call him.
Stan of Yorkshire.
He was a good player.
Yeah.
He was a good character as well as a good player.
And he sounds like one of these sort of guys, like you said, that clubs are built on, and one of those do anything for anybody type guys.
Yeah, I was definitely. Yeah. You were definitely 100% club man.
Yeah.
He didn't look like a rugby player, but he could really play rugby. He actually played against Dewsbury when we beat him at low forward, and then we had a bad injury, and he ended up going on wing.
Did he? Versatility before versatility was a thing.
He can play. He could play anywhere.
Anyway, that again, that just sort of epitomised it. And interesting that you mentioned one of the big upsets, because certainly if someone mentions Sharlston Rovers to me over the last umpteen years when I've been interested in rugby league, I've always thought, Challenge Cup upset merchants.
Yeah, it was amazing.
You got a bit of a reputation for upsetting the apple cart a few times, didn't you?
Yeah, well, we at the time we were building and we're getting where we were starting to win leagues. We were getting where we were. It's like we got Martin Wood in, and he used to say, have the saying of, it's an amateur club with a professional attitude, and that's exactly what we used to have. Nobody used to miss training. It used to be massive numbers. We used to do really well. And when we actually got to the draw, and we drew Dewsbury, they invited us to go to watch them couple of weeks before. And it was on a Sunday, so they put us in a box and they put us a few crates of beers in. Their players were sat having cups of tea and we were all on beer. And I remember their chairman came in and he says, how do you fancy turning this game to Dewsbury? He went, I think we can get about 800 at this game against Sharlston. I says, you're looking at 2,000-3,000 people who come to Featherstone. And he went, no way. And he had his calculator out and all this. And it just showed with support we had. I think Featherstone Rovers played Lock Lane on the Saturday. I think there were 900 there. And I think we had 2,700 there for that game against Dewsbury. So, and it was a great day. You know, I think it lasted 3 days after, and it were good times. It were good times, but there's been a lot of good times, to be fair.
So that particular cup tie that you're talking about, was it like last person out of Sharlston turned off the lights?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah,
100%. They used to follow us all over, and people talk about when we beat Dewsbury, we actually drew Oldham away on the Sunday, and they booked 16 coaches.
16 coaches. Wow.
16 coaches were booked for the Sunday, and it was the only game off in the amateur rugby in the professional Challenge Cup and all that. They called it Ofted Oldham.
Oh.
So I don't know. And then we had to go on the Wednesday night. And I think we ended up taking five buses ended up going on the Wednesday night.
Hey, that's still dead respectable, that though, isn't it?
Yeah. We used to, it's even, Johnny will tell you exactly the same. Even now, when we go away, we've always got more than they've got their own support. The supporters what even follows us, even through the hard times, and they follow you every week or choose where you go.
John, do you want to pick that up as well? What are your sort of memories of that time?
Yeah, I mean, it's at Oldham. I remember we had a bad injury to one of the players, didn't we? Were it Dale Ferris?
Say that again.
We had a bad injury, didn't we? Was it Dale Ferris got injured?
Yeah, he broke a bone in his neck. Yeah,
so we ended up doing a bucket collection round the stand at Oldham on the Wednesday night. And one of that, there were me and another lad from the secretary, Tony Palmer, doing collection, or supposedly. About 5 minutes before we were setting off, Martyn Wood come down and says to Tony, somebody's pulled out, you'll have to play. So I was stuck with a load of buckets on my own. What do I do now? So I got a couple of lads to help us. We just walked down the ground getting. We've got a lot. I mean, fair play to Oldham, their supporters.
Yeah.
Chipped in, and it was a good day out. It was a good night out.
I think that's the thing, isn't it, about rugby league fans, the country over. They're always of the same sort of ilk, aren't they? You know, there's always fierce rivalries and fierce support for your own side, but there's always a respect that's there for everybody that takes the field, really. Yeah, there
is. I mean, because whatever you're doing, they're doing. They're going through it. If you've suffered a bad injury, they've had one. If they're out of work, some of your lads are out of work. You're all in it together, really. It is one big family, rugby league family.
Would I be right in thinking as well, Gordie, that there was a lot of times over sort of fairly recent past where the club's had some success in the Barla National Cup, haven't they?
Yeah, we've actually played 6 times in National Cup, won 3, lost 3.
I mean, that's pretty good going, that, isn't it? From an entry sort of point of view. Yeah,
and best thing about that Barla Cup, when we beat Fryston, were actually every single team, every conference team were in. And I think in the last 4, there were Sells, Queens, Fryston, and Driglington, because we'd all knocked your Old Dockers and your East Hulls and all your teams. I think we played Egremont and Old Dockers and teams like that. So that Pennine League, what we were playing in, it was the toughest league I've played in. I played National Conference, Premier and stuff like that. But that Pennine division at the time. You had your Queens, your Frystons, your Hunslet Old Boys, even your Keithleys, your Halifax Irishers, and all your teams like that were just really, really tough.
All Andy sides then, weren't they?
Yeah, every team. Keithley used to get relegated every year, but they used to come back up. But guaranteed when you played him, it were like 12-0 or 12-4, or there were no a lot of points in it. Every single game was tough. But it's just stuff like that. I think we've been in 12 Yorkshire Cups and we've won 6 of them. We've won 6 of them as well. So it's been really successful, and we've gone through a bit of hard times, but at minute we've just got a second team back up and running, which we're really proud of. We've got us under 16s played in the Pennine League. They had a tilt at it with a few of us older heads, and they won that. So we didn't end up with an under 18s what we're supposed to be having, because they all wanted to stay open age because they enjoyed it that much.
Right. Okay. I mean that says a lot, doesn't it, for what you've got going as a club as well. That people want to stay around, don't they?
Yeah, it does as a club, because quite a lot of them kids when I started juniors up in 2014, and them kids were like me under 6s, under 7s, and you can see them now playing open age, and it's really proud, and it's a great moment when you see them playing for that open age, and that's what we put ourselves down to as a club.
So this sounds like there's a real renaissance that's going on at the club. I mean, don't get me wrong. I think a lot of teams have gone through harsh times, and it's ending up with real club men almost holding things together and holding the fort until the next lot of younger players or the next lot of players can sort of come through. And I think every club since the sport went to summer has had some element of that, where they've had years where nothing's happened, nobody's come through, or there's been teams missing age groups and things like that. So it's really encouraging to hear, the work that has been being put in for the last 10 years over there is starting to bear fruit again, Gordon.
Yeah, but we as old committee, and I must admit, when I first went to the club, it were all about just the open age sides. We always had 2 teams, we always had plenty of numbers, but you just don't think you need them kids. But it proves you do, because as we started losing a few players, we were struggling to get them back in from the village and stuff like that. So that's what made us start a junior section. And I remember we put a poster up. Any kids in the village or surrounding areas, if you want to come and play rugby, come to a meeting. I think there were about 20 odd people from all ages came. And we set a open training session up. And I remember one at old committee ringing me saying, "You need to get up here. There's about 60 kids running around field." So when we worked it all out, I think we had two teams, which were like a 10s and a 15s or something, but then 15 dwindled. So we decided as a club to start. And now we've got over 220 kids in that short space of time. And we've got every age group, apart from the 16s and the 18s now, down to tots. So, and there's some cracking players at what's coming through.
I mean, that's amazing when you look at, and forgive me for mentioning them, but Siddle, for example, are always seen as one of the, major clubs in Yorkshire, to be fair, aren't they? With all their age groups that they've got. And I remember having a similar sort of conversation to this, probably about 18 months ago with them, and they said they had like 320 kids. So you've only got 100 players less than Siddle, yeah. Which for me, that speaks volumes, and especially when you consider how, you've both already spoken about what small places there are and what integral little communities are involved, sort of around your club.
Well, we're like 2.5 mile away from Normanton and 2.5 mile away from Featherstone Lions, and at minute we've got more Featherstone Lions parents and what play, and the kids from Featherstone what are at Sharlston. We've got kids from Selby, York, Dearne Valley. They're travelling from all over because they see how good we're actually running it as a club, and how we all, one kid gets a polo, the 220 get a polo. They don't do any fundraising for themselves. Everything's run as one big community. I
mean that's fantastic in being able to do that and draw sort of like Because you've already spoken about it, and I think a lot of clubs in the past have gone down that way of just concentrating on the open age sections, and they've sort of almost had two clubs running in one, if you know what I mean. So they've got people are just looking after the open age, and then there's maybe a youth setup that is almost separate. But it sounds like you've got everything come together really now.
Well, just before we did set it up, we had a lot of older guys running the committee, the open age, and they were at loggerheads with each other. They didn't get on. The juniors run themselves, the open age run themselves, and then that's when we decided that we needed to try and get on. So there were myself, Johnny Broughton got on the committee, Pete Richardson, all ex-players who we all used to play with, Stuart Bailey, Mick Allison, and we got all these on the committee, and then we've just got George's wife, Emma, what's come on, and she's doing a great job for us. And then we've still got the junior committee as well, what started up as we're all coming together now. If we sort it all out, and we just got, there's no changing rooms going up, they should be finished in space of a month. So everything we're doing together now, and we're really getting on and stuff. So that's never been it's never happened in the past. We're all about just the open age, and it's one of them things. You're successful as you open age, you think you can just stay successful, but you can't. And we've proved that way it's happening now.
You've got to kind of look beyond, haven't you? I mean, in kind of like what I'm doing with the National Conference League, I get sent all the team sheets now. Sort of how everybody's playing, and you look around the National Conference League, and most teams have already fielded what are we, about 10 games, 12 games into the season potentially, but they've already fielded something like 40 or 50 players. Some teams, so it just shows you need more than just an open age, don't you? You need younger players coming through. It's increasingly becoming a younger person's sport, isn't it?
Yeah, 100%. And I know Johnny will come in on this one. It's Johnny's always coached the second team, and they love him to bits. He's like a messiah up there. They love him because he looks after everybody. And it was a shame when we lost the second team, but to be honest, we were lucky to keep the first team. And as a committee, we were losing players, and we had a big meeting. How do we get it? How do we try and get it back? And we went in for the coach last year, which was Aidy Mulcahy from Eastmore, and he's played at Normanton, and we thought that was going to be really good. We got a bit of a buzz early doors, but the young kids, it wasn't actually working. So we had a meeting again. We did let Aidy go, and then we decided to go keep it in-house. And we've got a young coach what's just joined fire service, great player at standoff, George Richardson, what's played at Featherstone Rovers and stuff, and he's been wanting to get into coaching. He's been helping myself, Lee Bettison and Johnny, and now he's come in as the head coach, and there's just a buzz about the place, isn't there, John?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny you mentioned Siddle earlier, because I always admired how Siddle ran things, and it seemed that all the kids that played for Siddle, they played and stayed at Siddle. They never went anywhere else, and that's what we try to do at Sharlston. And I think we're getting that way now. The kids that are coming, they're staying here, and they don't want to go anywhere else. The young lads are coming all the way through. So as they're coming through to old age now, they don't know they don't know anywhere else. This is the Sharlston through and through. Whereas a lot of other clubs, the players just tend to move around. Yeah. I don't know why that is. I did it a bit when I was younger. Once I got to Sharlston, I realised what a good club it was. I just stayed there.
Yeah.
I think, like God said, we brought a lad that's come through the system at Sharlston. His dad played at Sharlston. He was a Sharlston junior. He played, he went professional, and he's come back into the game. So he knows what we're about. It's not just about winning and losing. He knows what it means to put a team out every week, and that's important to us. Fulfilling fixtures, we don't like. We'll go short if we have to. We're not one of these teams that rings up and says, "Oh, we ain't got enough. We're not coming today."
Yeah, and I mean that's something that again. it's blighted the North West Men's League over the last 2 or 3 seasons. That with I seem to recall, keeping an eye on Twitter, and I think Hashim Atoms were saying that there was about 4 or 5 times last season where teams cried off on them. And I think a team in Runcorn as well had teams that were crying off on them as well. So has this been sort of something that's been a bit more prevalent in Yorkshire too?
It tends to happen midway through a season. If clubs can't, they're not doing well or they can't win anything, the players then tend to disappear and go elsewhere. Certainly with the summer-winter split. If they're not doing well in the Winter League, they just jump ship and find a summer club. And then vice versa, if they're not doing well summer, they'll jump out and go train with a winter club. That's frustrating. It must be frustrating for the clubs that it happens to as well, because they put everything into putting a side out, and then players just decide to go elsewhere because they can't win this club. That's frustrating, that.
Out of interest, I mean, like I know you mentioned the summer and winter clubs. Obviously, there is still a winter competition that takes place, isn't there? Where is Sharlston with regards to that? Are they sort of like an all-year-round club, or does it depend on situations? Does it depend on what the different teams want?
We're trying to be an all-year-round club now. So we competed in the summer last year, then we went straight through to the winter with the under-16s and a few open-age players. Played in Division 1 and I think we lost 1 game all season, which were really good. And then the same players have come along to the summer, and we've managed to get 2 teams out now.
That's a cracking experience as well for those younger lads who are coming through and playing in the winter. I mean, I know both of you were saying about, when people say, oh, it's been a tough game. I mean, they were tough games, weren't they, back in winter when you got players running after you wanting to knock 7 bells out of you and that type of stuff.
No comment.
I like that. That's a smart answer.
The Winter League it had a reputation. There was some really tough teams in there. A lot of them were hard but fair. There were some that crossed the line, but a lot of them were hard but fair. I'm not saying it's any easier now. It probably isn't. I don't play now, so I can't really comment on it. But you see some of the hits that are going in now from kids, and you think, I won't fancy that.
But I do think, and I like that where you were saying there's a good mix of the lads that are moving up in the age groups, and some older heads as well. I think it's a real good yardstick for those guys, isn't it? And getting them exposed to, if you like, the rigours of an open age game and an open age season. Early doors, really, because sometimes you get where kids kind of like stay in their own age groups, don't you, for a long while.
Well, Lee Bettison were actually coaching them at the first team coach before Adi came here. He took the under-16s on. He turned them into a really good side, and we had a meeting about having a go in this Pennine League in the winter, and they were 50-50. They were umming and ahhing to say they didn't want to be playing. It was more the parents what a bit no, but most of the lads wanted to have a go. So, and I says you can have a go in that, and then we can have an under-18s next year, and we can. But they took to it like a duck to water, and they got you. They were buzzing. They were playing with older guys what were looking after them. Then they were going in clubhouse and having a few sherbets, and they were enjoying themselves. So I think they got that buzz on, and they just wanted to play open age, and it's best thing what's happened to us as a club, really, because it's nice when you can go up training and there's 30-40 guys there, and straight away they're not bothered who they play for. There's no, I'm not playing for these and I'm not playing for these. Who am I with this week? Team goes up. No, not one complaint at all year. And that's where your first team lad what's gone down, your second team lad what's come up, and even mixed. Every time if we've got a friendly, it's always a mixed team. We never just take the first or the second. We all mix in and they all go out drinking together now. So, they're all best mates. And good thing about it is for us as a open age and for the youngsters as well is every year now after next year we've got an age group coming up to open age. we're having all the age groups. So, and to be honest, all those age groups are maxed out nearly at 25. We had to put 2 under-7s in this year because we've got that many kids.
I mean, that's amazing, that, isn't it? That is such a credit to the work that you're doing, and you know, sort of the word that you're getting out, because obviously people want to be coming, they want to be bringing the kids down. They know that it's a good club then.
Yeah, that's exactly what's happening. I know there's been Feathers and Lions have been having it a bit tough at the minute, and I think they're trying to get back to the U because they've seen how good we're actually doing it, and we've got a tots now, 4 and 5 year olds, and they're playing games of rugby at training, so they're ready to play under 6s next year. And we've already got 15 or 16 under 6s playing now. I'm coaching the under 6s, so I stay with the under 6s, and then I help Johnny if they need me to coach the first team and stuff. So, but it's just great, and we've got the coaches ready to go for next year's under 6s. So it's just constantly going to be a conveyor belt going up. It's going to be good for the club and the community.
I was going to say, how do you end up planning for that? You know, because I know that you said that you put the advert up initially, but when you've started to got all these kids that are starting to come through and they're starting to come in, how do you plan? You know, because that's sort of I'd imagine a real hot potato in trying to get things in place.
I think a lot of people, a lot of clubs, what I've seen, they just put an advert out. We're starting in under 9s. Does you want to come? And they ain't got the coaches involved. They don't know how much hard work it is to set it all up. But from the juniors, they've got an awesome committee. They've got, I think there's 6 of us, 6 or 7 of us, and they're all brilliant. They all do their own little jobs, and I do the coaching side with all the age groups in the juniors. But I start with the 6s. We've got a coach with the tots. And then as soon as they come to the 6s, I stay with the 6s and we get another coach. So I coach 2 coaches. So when they go to the under 7s, you've got 2 level 2 coaches, what's had a year's experience coaching with myself and Lee Bettison. And then they move up to the 7, and then we go again with the tots, what come to the 6s. And then we coach the coaches as well as the kids as well. So we're coaching the coaches and the kids.
So you really are putting a Sharlston way in place, aren't you, from an early age, and getting that buy-in so that people stay loyal, like John did at the back end of his days when he joined.
Definitely, 100%, and it's always good. With other clubs always speak highly of us now. How good are your skills at 6 and 7 year old, and how good are your teams? You know, as 9s and as 10s, they're amazing. We tried organising a gala. We couldn't get one team to come and play against them both.
Really?
That's how good the 9s and the 10s are.
That's sad though, isn't it? You know, that nobody wants to play him, because you'd think that they'd pick a lot up from that as well, wouldn't you?
Yeah. It's certain age group, them age groups, we've had them since they were 4 year old.
Yeah.
And they've got like 24, 25 players, but every one of them can play rugby, and they're just, the skill levels for the age are amazing. And
I think that's the important thing, you know, because obviously it sounds like you go majorly on the skill side, you know, so winning and losing at that stage, I suppose it doesn't really matter as much, because you're looking at the development of them kids and getting basic 100%. Rugby skills into them, aren't you?
100%. We just want to put them on the right path, and we want to learn them all the skills and how to play rugby, but also how to be good young men as well, and ladies as well, girls. When we go to the clubhouse, we all sit together. You know, we sweep the changing rooms out when we're finished. We try and do everything right, and clubs love coming to our. It's like our under 6s that come, and it's like a wedding spread. We all food the fetch. We have big massive buffets, and teams love it when they come. They're saying it's amazing how you run stuff, and they know they've got to tidy up and leave it exactly how we found it.
So it's respect as well, isn't it?
It is, and if we can teach them from tops and 6 and 7 as young kids, all going up, every age group, and even the coaches, if them changing rooms are left a mess, they know about it. And John and Lex tell you we're constantly on it. Same with the gym, we've got a nice gym there. It got in lockdown, we had it all done up. We did really well with it, and it looked amazing. And then a lot of people were leaving a bit of a mess and leaving weights out, so we stamped down on that, and now it's starting to get back to where we wanted it. So
if I can bring you back into the conversation, John, I know certain Gordon mentioned there about COVID. Now, I know that COVID had a huge impact on rugby league and particularly community clubs because it meant that games couldn't get played for 12 months or so. Really, how did as a club you cope with that part? Really,
we found it hard to start with. It affected us. Unfortunately, we got to a final. We won a semi-final. Got to a final, and the final was cancelled because of COVID, which disappointing for the lads that had got there because they'd worked hard all season to get to a final. We had a brilliant win over at Illingworth in sleet and snow and what have you, and then we couldn't play the final, which was disappointing. We tried to keep in touch with all the players. We obviously couldn't train because you couldn't have groups. You couldn't have groups together and that. When the lockdown was eased slightly and you could have meetings, you could start training again, but you had to go through all the protocol, the temperature testing and keeping your distance and all that. Not being able to have showers. We managed to get people back in, and because people had been away from the game for so long, we weren't sure if they were going to be missing it or they'd have found something else. We found that people were missing it, so they came back determined to get back into the game. So as the lockdown eased, it benefited us. We were getting kids coming back who we hadn't seen for a while, wanting to join in, wanting to train, wanting to just get out of the house because we were all going stir crazy. There were no games to start with, but we did start training, then we started playing some friendlies, and then the league started up again. And we had the numbers back because, like I say, everyone had gone stir crazy, just wanted to be back out in a bit of fresh air kind of thing.
I mean, those will be defining times. I think when people look back on it in a few years' time, there'll be, there was so much where I don't think anybody really realised throughout the community game about how it will be affected. Nobody knew. I remember certainly the National Conference League, and forgive me for talking about National Conference, but obviously I've got a close affinity with that competition. And at that time, nobody knew what strength any of the teams were going to be, what sort of teams they were going to turn out. They decided that they'd go down the regional route, and there's a couple of clubs, a couple of murmurs that teams still want to maybe experience that regional divisions again. I know being in the Yorkshire Men's League, what sort of the furthest travel that you end up doing as a club?
This year we've got a team from Nottingham in our league.
Okay, that's a fair whack, to be fair, isn't it?
Yeah. There's a team from Derby in a couple of leagues below us. Keighley, that's a fair. We're at Keighley on Saturday. That's about an hour's trek. There's a whole side in our league, so again another hour and a half.
Oh, so you're putting a bit of mileage on, aren't you? Really, from that division that you've talked about with those teams. I sort of had this sort of feeling, that you might be a bit more local than that.
There is some local games. I mean, the Stanley Rangers coming. They've got promotion into our league this year. That's a local derby that's reignited a bit of passion. Ossett, they're not so far away. Cutsight from Castle, only 8 or 9 mile away from us. So there is some local games, but then there's a bit of travelling as well. We've got a bus on Saturday. The second team don't have a game, so we're all going together to watch the first team.
This sounds like it could be an epic day, that.
It could be, yeah.
And I want to come back to you, Gordie, on 2 points, if I may. So the first one that you was mentioning regarding, sort of facilities and new, was it a new changing area that had been built at the club?
Yeah.
And what sort of plans have you had to put in place over recent years to sort of develop them, and how does that look going forward?
Well, as a committee, the first job we had to do was secure this field again because I think they had a 99-year lease on it, and it had run out. It was running out. So we had to, I think, what it 20 or 25 years we've signed, haven't we, John?
Yeah, I think it's 25 years, I think.
And I think it's a penny a year. We pay a penny a year or something like that. But we've everything on it is all ours, and we we got a guy in who did some funding for us, and we finally got the go ahead to get these new changing rooms. We've only got 2 changing rooms, and I think we've got 12 teams now. So it's been a bit of a nightmare, but we got the World Cup money, which we got £50,000 for, and then Sport England gave us £50,000, and it was going to cost us as a club £50,000, which to get it finished. But with COVID it, so that put everything back. And then when we've come back now to get it finished, everything's gone up in price.
Right. Okay.
So we've had to actually pay £80,000 instead of 50.
Oh, that's some inflation, right?
It's just all the goods and all the all the timber and everything about it. So we've had to try, and we've done loads of fundraising, and as a community we've got amazing people. Anything we want, I think we've just spent £16,000 on strips, and nearly everything were all funded. And we have a charity days. I think we did £14,000 in one game.
That's amazing, that, isn't it?
For the All Stars, and then they took £12,000 behind the bar. So anything we do, and it's same as he mentioned, Dale Ferris, he broke his neck, and I think we raised a lot. And then Jimmy Gittins, he broke his back playing for us, at his neck and his back. He's in a wheelchair. I think we did nearly £20,000 for him in about 4 months.
And of course, Jimmy does a lot with State of Mind now, doesn't he?
Yeah. Jimmy's a good friend of ours, and any events we've got on at club is there, and he comes and does all his State of Mind for us, and I think he's forever grateful to Sharlston for what we did with the fundraising and stuff, and we've done it with a hell of a lot of people, and we're renowned for it, to be fair. And as a community, they are always, they're brilliant. As soon as you put anything on what you want, they're there and they do it for you, and no second question. So as a community, I'd say we're second to none as compared with that.
What I also liked in what you were saying as well is that you was getting like girls interested as well. Obviously, a big thing moving forward, and certainly after the World Cup, has been the development of sort of girls rugby league moving forward. And I know certainly in Yorkshire it's a bit more stronger than it is this side of the Pennines. It would be fair to say there seems to be a lot more teams that are playing, particularly at a more open age level. Does Sharlston have plans for like girls teams as well moving forward?
Yeah, well, we're looking at that. We actually had the Wakefield Trinity team, ladies open age team playing there, and then the under-16s. But because of the space and the nights we were training, all the kids now, we just got too big for them, so they ended up moving. And I think as under 8s at the minute, it's got about 6 or 7 girls. So in 2 years' time, we're looking at starting they'll go into the under 11s as a full team themselves. So
that's so encouraging, that, isn't it?
Yeah, that's how we're looking at starting, because it's not as easy just to say we're going to start around the 11s and try and get all girls to come through. So we're actually doing it with the girls we've actually got at the club already.
And that's nice, so as they know that in a couple of years' time there'll be a team of their own to go into, because quite often, as we know, when you reach high school age, that's when girls in the past have generally stopped playing rugby, haven't they?
Yeah, I think we'd have probably pushed it harder if we'd have had them as changing rooms earlier on in the year.
Yeah.
Well, it's hard because with them 2 changing rooms, with all them amount of people what we've got coming through, and same with field, we train on that. There's probably nearly 1,000 people on the main pitch a week.
Is there something about the pitches in that area, because I know Steve, who I do our show with, he really speaks highly of that Featherstone Rovers pitch. He says he's amazed with the amount of hammer that gets, because if you think about it, over at Rovers they have like all the championship games. They usually host Sheffield for 1 or 2 games a season, don't they, when they can't play in Sheffield, for example. They host all the Barla finals, all the junior finals, Yorkshire Cups,
school finals.
Yeah. So what is it that you do with pitches there? If because it sounds like yours can stand a bit of a hammer as well. To be fair,
it's looking really well. It's a little bit ball because it's had some hammer, but we've got a groundsman there, Graham Walker. He comes and does everything for free. He sorts all the council out who'll come and cuts, the seed it, the slice it. He's got us off it for 5 weeks coming up in July. So it's going to be like Wembley again, he says, at the end of August. But it does take some hammer, but it's as a junior section as well. We go indoor training or all-weather training from October until 31st of March, where nobody's allowed to field apart from the open age and the 15s. But if it's a bad night and it's bouncing, they're not allowed on main pitch. We go behind the sticks, or we've got a big gymnasium where we can do circuits or stuff like that. So, but Graham Walker needs a big shout out. He's a volunteer and he does amazing. He comes and marks it out every week. Apart from he's going away for 10 days, so I know Johnny's going to do one.
I think your name got put forward, not mine.
I was going to say, have you just been volunteered live on air there, John?
My eyes aren't good enough to know them lines anymore.
Stuart Bailey normally do it, but Graham goes mad when he comes back because they're all over the place.
I suppose it would be remiss of me not to mention some of your sponsors that you've got as well, because I think like every community club, you've got people that keep chipping in every year.
Yeah, we've got a couple like that. We've just got we've got Went Valley Skips, who's amazing. He just said, put me down, I'll buy 3 strips, and he just comes and gives you cash and you put it in bank. And we just got Morley Glass, and there's Dave Brown. There's hundreds, but there's people what just come back every year, and it don't matter what. We had a charity game against the All Stars last year. I put it on social media saying we wanted a new strip and that. And they got us polos, 2 brand new strips because we had 40 odd players. Everything paid for, and then the players all paid £50 to chuck in kitty for the charity what we did it for, and just stuff like that. They're amazing, and I know open age. It's same with that. We put it on, and we can get a brand new strip in it within a couple of days if we put it on. There's that many sponsors come forward.
I feel like I'm going full circle here, because we started off asking about, kind of like a bit of the history of the club and where it came from, and sort of like talked about some of those halcyon days of cup wins, etc., etc. How's the current first team looking? How are you doing in the league so far? Is it starting to look like we could be seeing the rise of Sharlston again?
I think so. I'll just have a quick word with, and then Johnny will tell you. But they started really well. I think they'll have a good chance of winning the league. They're in the cup as well, which beat Keighley at weekend. The semi-final, get playing against some other side. But it's not just that. It's the second team as well. They play in first teams wanting to play them, but a lot of them haven't got second teams. So our second team playing actually the first teams in Yorkshire. And they've won quite a few. They've got beat by a few, but they're still enjoying it. So, and they're always there for the first team if they, vice versa. There's no quarrels, no fallouts, and as a club, it's never been in a better place as far as I'm concerned.
John, do you want to add to that?
Yeah, I think what Gordie says right. We're going in the right direction. We have been doing for a couple of years now. We got to the Barley Cup final last year. Unfortunately, we played one of the best sides in the country, Waterhead from Oldham, who gave us a lesson in rugby that day. But we got there. We learned from it. We then played in the winter, and we learned. The young lads learned playing with the older lads. The older lads got the buzz back because they were playing with the younger kids. They won their league, and then we've come into the summer now. People are enjoying it. They're wanting to play. You get setbacks when we've already lost once this season against a really strong Keighley side, but they've had some good wins. The second team, like Gordie says, we're turning up every week. We're playing against bigger and better sides than us, but we're having a go. We're shocking a few sides. We're going in the right direction. I I'd like to say in 4 to 5 years we'd like to be one of the better sides again, like we used to be. It's going to take a while, but hopefully we will get there.
Excellent. And I'm thinking as well, finally, do you have ambitions of maybe going into the National Conference League, or are you quite happy sort of rising up through the ranks of the Yorkshire Men's League again?
Go on, John.
Yeah, we had ambitions of getting into the conference a few years ago.
Yeah.
Didn't work out, and that's when we started having problems because some of the players we had, they weren't prepared to play at the lower level anymore, so they left. Which that's when we ended up back with one team. I think it would be nice to get in the conference because you're guaranteed a game every week. You're playing at a good standard. Some really good sides in there. Some of the sides in there we've played against for years. They've gone up there, Driglingtons, teams like that. It's probably an ambition. Whether it'll come off or not, I don't know. Gordie?
I'd like it to come off. I'd like it to come off in the next couple of years where we go in, because I just think where it is at minute, where the amount of players we're getting and how well it's being run, I think we're this time it's ready. I personally think as a committee and as a club and playing side, I think we're ready. And I'd love it if we could get in there.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't want to sort of put you on the spot there at all, gents, but I was just sort of like wondering about that, because, from everything that you've talked about, it sounds like you've got everything that's moving in the right direction in just that sort of area that, the conference looks at, really.
I think it's last year we're going to put an application in last year, and then we were going to wait and see how it went last year, and then look at it this year. And we had change of coach and stuff like that. But it's like John just says now, we're getting players back. What play when I played, they're coming back because they want to play with these kids, and that's what the buzz is about. And it's, as a committee, we said at the start of the year, it doesn't matter about the results. Let's just get these teams out and enjoy your rugby and enjoy what we're doing, and that's all what we're doing at the minute. And we're getting more and more. We're getting players coming in every week from other clubs, from your conference sides. They're coming, they're wanting to sign because the mates are telling them how good it is and how much they're enjoying it. And I think now we've got that conveyor belt with us youth, I think it's time to get in there and have a really good go at it.
Gentlemen, thank you ever so much for your time this evening. Really appreciated it. Enjoyed hearing all about Sharlston, to be honest. Some of them stories are legendary. I do suggest that you get them put down on paper, because I think they would sell, and I'd certainly buy a copy, put it that way.
Well, me and Johnny's got a lot more stories.
I know there's plenty that probably couldn't be broadcast as well, but we'll leave them for the book as well.
There is a book out from Sharlston, Dave.
Is there?
Yeah, Graham Chalker wrote it a few years ago. It's called Back at Wall.
I'm going to write that down. I'm always one of those people, me, that I love reading stuff about rugby league as well.
If you send me your address, I'll post you one out.
Oh,
he's actually sold out, and I've actually got 2 at home.
Wow! Hey, I tell you what, that's bedtime reading sorted. To be honest, Gordie.
You'll love it as well, because it starts from the 1800s right up to when we beat Dewsbury and stuff like that, and it's got every single game, who scored tries. We actually had an Hall of Fame. Sorry, I know you're good. We actually had an Hall of Fame last year, and the guy what did the book named every single player what's ever played at Sharlston.
That is fantastic. I mean, I do love that level of sort of rugby league knowledge and history, because don't get me wrong, as much as I love the fact that people do talk about expansion within our sport, and don't get me wrong, it needs to happen, and I understand that, but you can't ignore where the game has come from, in my opinion. Yeah. And I think that something like that acknowledges the past, but also gives a nod and a wink to the future as well, and says, look at what could happen again. Steve, I thought I was back on tour. It was a great throwback, that conversation, wasn't it?
It was. I mean, it went off in all sorts of different tangents, and it was one of them where it warmed up, didn't it? It was a bit of a slow burner at the beginning there, but once the guys got, sort of understanding that were, we really wanted to hear about the club. They were the great sort of informers and the amount of different stories. And like he said at the end, I bet there are lots and lots of stories there that they can't say on air. and would struggle in print as well.
Well, to be fair, Gordie's been good to his word, because he did mention the fact that they did have a history book all done about Sharlston Rovers, and he sent it me, so I'm having to read through that at the moment. Again, a fascinating club history, and I love stuff like that. For me, there's not enough of the acknowledgement of just how historical some of these community clubs are. But again, this is the whole point of why we're doing this podcast, isn't it? Really?
Yeah. And what rang with me was that he was on about the team that he played for, and it was just a pub team, and only lasted sort of like a few years. And I can relate to that, because that was the sort of time that I remember, before the NCL, when it was Barlow was the big main stick, as it were, and there was lots and lots of pub teams, and there's a lot of teams now that are going that have come from those pub teams, and you look at Thatterweath, for instance, in St Helens. If you look back at Thatterweath, that is an amalgamation to a certain degree of a lot of pub teams that were in and around Thatterweath at the time. And then you got, again, in Thatterweath, you got Portico Vine. Again, that comes from a pub that was there. So that's, an history, and I can totally understand that, and certainly from a mining community as well. Obviously, and that's one of the reasons you look at the game, and we always, we berate it to a certain degree. We say, we do the old M62 corridor type thing. But if you look at the logic, is that M62 corridor is around where most of the mines were up and down the country, so it's understandable where those teams are. And the rugby, that grew up there.
And we should be proud of that.
Yeah,
we should be really proud of where we've come from. Because not only is rugby league a fantastic sport, not only does it, give so many memories, which we've heard about, not only does it provide friendships and kinships for life, it also provides, if you like, identities to communities that would otherwise have been forgotten about a long time ago.
Yep. Because the thing is, obviously, the original identity would have been the pit. That would have been the thing that would have been the community. And we know pits, but, the country has been devastated with the amount of pits that have gone over the last, 30, 40 years. There's virtually none there now.
I could get very political here, Steve,
Oh yeah,
so I'm gonna swerve it for now, if you don't mind, because I can feel my heckles getting up.
But it's good, like you say, it's good that community has been able to survive by them still being together, by following rugby league, and that still being there in that respect.
But this is again why I don't get the expansionists want to get rid of that. That's where the bedrock of our sport lies. I don't. But that's got to be the core, hasn't it? Can it not go hand in hand?
Yeah.
You can have both. You don't have to get rid of your bedrock just because you want a team somewhere in the country. And don't get me wrong, we've spoke to some fantastic people that are doing fantastic development work. They're creating clubs right in different parts of the country and doing wonderfully. And I want to see that. But I also want to see clubs like Sharlston Rovers, and I also want to see, clubs like Lee Miners Rangers, and I want to see those clubs sort of continue. And
there's a place for them, isn't there? There's got to be a place for them, for the simple reason that, they don't last for years and years. Even though, and we've mentioned this, and they've mentioned it, about the hardships you have, on some seasons, whether it's fundraising, whether it's with having players or different things like that. You're going to get the ebb and flow of that to a certain degree with regards to the economic situations that have been over the years. And then obviously, if you do get that success, your players are going to go on and try and play professional. That is only natural, and you've got to touch your hat and you fall look and say, "Come on, mate, off you go. You do." And do us proud. And you've only got to look at some of the names that they mentioned there that have come from Sharlston. So it is. There's got to be a place for them to play rugby. Okay, if you want to expand it further up at the top and do it whatever way, that's fine. Go ahead and do it, but don't do it by sort of deriding these clubs and getting rid of them.
But also looking to the future as well. They're a club that has one eye on the future, and with them having something like, I think they mentioned, was it 220, 230 juniors?
It's huge, that, isn't it?
That's a huge club, That's a massive club. So yeah, really enjoyed finding out about it. I think you can tell that I enjoyed that.
I'm glad you told us what it was, because do you know what? For some reason,
where did you think it was?
I always got. I know it wasn't, but for some reason, I always thought Irish. Isn't that strange? Yeah. And I don't know why. It might be
they might sell Guinness in the bar.
It might be we call it Rovers. I don't know, but yeah. But there again, it's up to my favourite ground, isn't it?
Oh, we can't get through a show without you.
No.
Although you didn't actually mention it by name this time. No. Thank goodness for small mercies. Right, so that sort of teed us up very nicely to go into looking at what happened in the Yorkshire Men's League at the weekend. So, in the Premier Division, Siddle Academy defeated Almery Spartans by 20 points to 10. King Cross Park had a massive victory against Brighouse Rangers by 52 points to 22, and Fryston Warriors lost out to Doncaster Tollbar by 34 points to 22. And then into Division 1, we have Keighley Albion, who was successful against Sharlston Rovers by 48 points to 16. Ossett Trinity Tigers losing out in a narrow fashion to Nottingham Outlaws. I've seen a little video from Nottingham Outlaws, by the way, celebrating that win, and it sounded like a loud dressing room. They enjoyed that one, I think, the Outlaws. So those were your two games that took place in Division 1. Division 2, well, that saw Wibsey Warriors 24, Greetland All-Rounders 0, Odsal Sedberg 20, Farnley Falcons 28, Kirkburton Cougars 40, Mould Green ARLFC 18, Illingworth 6, Bradford Dudley Hill 36. They seem to be coming to now, Bradford Dudley Hill, don't they, after coming out of the National Conference League. I hope that's what the club needs, to be fair, to just regroup and come back stronger. Sometimes you need to take a step back to move forward, don't you?
Yeah, totally agree. And do you know what? Even if they don't come back, if it means that they're still going to exist and still going to play rugby league, that is good. I mean, then there's always that chance that if they do want to do it further in the future, it doesn't mean that, hang on, we've gone, off we go type of thing. Yeah.
A cracker of a game over at Wyke, where they defeated Elland by 26 points to 22 in Division 3. Your other Division 3 results: Castleford Panthers 42, Birstall Victoria 14, Garforth Tigers 28, Underbank Rangers 10. And then moving on to Division 4A. And that saw Goole Vikings come out on top against Leeds Accies in spectacular fashion.
Big win.
62 points to 8 in that one. York St John Barbarians 34, Craigleston All Blacks 18. A good win that for York St John Barbarians. Harrogate Hawks 6, Bramley Buffaloes 36. And then Division 4B. Well, that saw a win for Birkinshaw Blue Dogs over Mulgrane A. Todmorden had an excellent victory against Keighley Albion Academy by 28 points to 16. And West Craven Warriors, they had a 24-0 against King Cross Park Academy. And Newsom Panthers A, they had an impressive victory as well, 66 points to 0 at home against Brighouse Rangers A. Division 4C. And that saw the Dearne Valley Bulldogs take on the Hemsworth Dragons and win by 44 points to 26. There was a real high-scoring game between Sherwood Wolfhunt and Upton, with Upton just getting the benefit by 34 points to 28. Dodworth Miners, they were given the win against Sheffield Forgers by 24 points to 0. And meanwhile, the Rycroft Hammers went down by 28 points to 10 against the Derby Elks. And I've got to say, that's a really impressive victory for Derby as well, that isn't it, Steve?
Yeah. Do you know what? Look, I say this regular. I just love some of these names. They're absolutely superb.
You're laughing at me as I try and pronounce some of them as well, aren't you?
Oh, well, I know you're not going to do the Welsh League this week because I was looking at that.
Are you having a go? Are you going to do that one?
No way.
You know what? I'm going to give it a go. From the Hull division, Skirler Bulls 58, Hull Dockers 0, West Hull 22, East Hull 28. Hull is blue and not green. I bet that caused a couple of ructions. In your NCL East, it was Normanton Knight 6, York Acorn 42, and Loch Lane had that 24-0 against Featherstone Lions, and Bentley had the 24-0 against Heworth. And there was a really good game, actually, between Hunslet and Alton Raiders on the Friday night. That finished 20 points apiece. Bet that was worthwhile watching.
Yeah. Interesting, that one, isn't it? Yeah.
And then in the NCL West, Milford 24, Dewsbury Moor 0. And then your Friday night game, sort of West Bowling Academy, 40 points to 6 victors over at Shawcross Sharks. Another cracking result there. And in the Cup competition, well, they were playing for Cup and League points for Keighley Albion and Sharlston Rovers. I mentioned that one before, 48 points to 16 victory for Keighley Albion. So that's your Yorkshire Men's League, Steve.
Yeah.
Yeah, so a couple of games to tell you about from the Cumberland League, Steve. Starting off on Friday night, Ellenborough 26, Cockermouth 46. Couple of tries for Kevin Holborn, or once upon a time Barla Tourist, for Ellenborough. However, it was Cockermouth who had the better of that encounter. Hat-trick from Alex Barton, 2 tries each between Regan Tinian, Rob Scott, and it would also be fair to say that Alex Barton was voted the man of the match as well. There was also a big win for Kells A at Hensingham, winning by 46 points to 8. It was 20 points to 8 at half-time to Kells, who had try scorers from Aaron Burns, who grabbed a hat-trick, Danny Greers, Dan Starkey grabbed 2, Dylan Telford, Corey Chambers and Jamie Jennings got the tries with 4 goals from the boot of Aaron Burns. And then another game to tell you about, Glasson Rangers 0, Dissington 58. And they can put some points on as well, can Dissington. Steve Conway and Aaron Connell scoring 2 tries each. Steve Clark chipping in with a try and 9 goals. Dissington's man of the match, a certain Tyrone Dalton. Nice to see him still doing the business after many years of playing community rugby league. And then this one a heck of a lot closer. Lauca 14, Egremont 20. At half-time it was just 14 points to 6 in favour of Egremont. The try scorers for Lauca came from Dean Hay, who grabbed 2, and Mitchell Todd, Jamie Scott kicking a goal. And for Egremont, it was tries from Sam Williams, Jack Pay, Dylan Scott and Luke Pay, with Caden Block kicking 2 goals. Wathborough A, they were victorious at Maryport by 50 points to 6, really piled on the pressure in the second half as well. It was just 16 points to 0 at half-time. Maryport's sole points came courtesy of a try and conversion from Josh Patterson, and for Wathborough, 2 tries each for Peter Caddy and Jamie Devine, with Jack Megan, Luke Spivey, Evan Alec, Brad White and Daly Stables offering the other try scorers. Conversions coming courtesy of Jensen Alstrom. So that's your results from the Cumberland Leagues.
Right, so where to next? We wander into the Northwest Men's.
Yeah, let's head into the Northwest Men's, shall we?
Right, I'll go through from Saturday the 20th of May. We're going to kick off with Premier Division, Henley 14, Hurstfinch 44. So Hurstfinch continuing there to march on and really strong. Ashton Burst 36, Alton Farmers Hornets 0. Blackbrook 34, Oral St James 42. Big win there at Blackbrook for Oral St James. Shevington Sharks 48, Isham Atoms 10. Moving down into Division 1, we've got Caddishead Rhinos 30, Foley Lane 16. West Orton Lions, they were up against Chorley Panthers, and it was Chorley Panthers 16, West Orton Lions 18. So another good win for the West Orton Lions, on a bit of a roll at the moment. Salford City Roosters versus Dalton, no results. And also Thatchweed Crusaders and Ulverston, no results. Wigan St Cuthbert's 16, Wigan Springview 32. Then we've got Burton Bridge versus Highpool Tigers was postponed. Goulburn Parkside 42, Woolston Rovers A16. Newton Storm 34, Lee Miners Rangers A10. Rochdale Mayfield A28, Roost Pioneers 30. Walney Central 16, Ashton Burrs A17. Moving into Division 3, we've got Garswood Stags 66, Blackpool Scorpions 16. Higginshaw 24, Clockface Chargers A0. I wonder whether that was a walkover. Rochdale Hornets 24, Langworthy Reds 20.
Notable win that, really, wasn't that, for Rochdale Hornets?
Yeah. They're known next week they're in the cup at Newton. So that'll be interesting to see them. Waterhead Warriors A versus West Bank Birds was postponed. In Division 4, Culcheth Eagles versus Preston and South Ribble Rabbitohs, no results. Liverpool Lizards 36, Wigan Springview A12. Now that is a good result for Liverpool. Well done to Runcorn Highfield 24, Garswood Stags Reserves 0. Runcorn given that one. And Bank Key Bulls versus Bolton, that was off. And finally, in the Alliance Division, we've got Ince Rosebridge A70, Oldham St Anne's A12, Lee East A24, Oddle St James A0, Wigan St Jude's A versus Pilks Rex A. That was no result there either. The fixtures for next week.
Yeah, so that's all starting on Friday in the Alliance Cup. It's Ince Rosebridge A against Springview A. Then on Saturday in the Cup, it's Hurstfinch taking on Folly Lane, Ashton Burrs hosting Blackbrook. That looks like a tasty fixture, doesn't it? Oral St James at home to Hindley. Wigan Springview at home to Halton Farmouth Hornets. In the trophy, West Bank Burrs go over to Higginshaw. Burtonwood Bridge host Goulburn Parkside. Blackpool Scorpions head over to Bank Key Bulls, and Newton Storm host the Rochdale Hornets. In the Alliance Cup, it's Lee East A taking on Ashton Burrs A, Rochdale Mayfield A hosting Thatto Heath Crusaders A, and in the Alliance Division, Wigan St Jude's A are due to take on Oral St James A. And then we've got a strange Wigan St Jude's just stuck there with nobody to play.
So if anyone wants to play Wigan St Jude's A,
it looks like they're available to play, doesn't it? There. Should I also mention as well the earlier fixtures? I don't think I talked about the earlier fixtures from both of the competitions which we went through before. So from a Yorkshire Men's League point of view, it's the Cup on Saturday. Newson Panthers at home to Brighouse Rangers. Stanley Rangers go over to Doncaster Tollbar, and Siddle Academy take on Ossett Trinity Tigers away at Ossett. In the trophy, Kirkburton Cougars are at home to Queensbury. Wibsey Warriors at home to Bradford Dudley Hill. Greetland All-Rounders host Castleford Panthers. Meanwhile, the Garforth Tigers head over to take on the Seacroft Sharks. And in the Shield, it's Bramley Buffaloes hosting Upton. Todmorden at home to Goole Vikings. Batley Boys travelling over to East Hull. And Keighley Albion Academy over at Dodworth Miners. In the NCL Alliance Cup, it's Bentley hosting Shawcross Sharks. Skirler heading over to Ulton Raiders. Normanton Knights up against Myton Warriors, and Hull Dockers hosting Hunslet. There's games in the divisions as well. So in Division 3, Sherburn Bears host Methley Warriors. In Division 4A, Harrogate Hawks make the short hop over to Scarborough Pirates. Division 4B sees West Craven Warriors over at Mull Green. And Division 4C sees the Hemsworth Dragons hosting the Derby Elks. And in NCL East Division, it's Bentley taking on Loch Lane. And now your fixtures in Cumberland. So in the Holman Eagleson Cumberland League, it's Ellenborough A hosting Loughborough Hornets A, Kells A hosting Maryport. And those are your fixtures on Friday night. On Saturday, it's the turn of Louker to host Seaton Rangers A, Dissington to host Hensingham A, and Cockermouth Titans go over to play against Glasson Rangers. And moving back to results now, we've got the Southern Conference results from last week. Bedford Tigers 26, Bristol Allgolds 38, Hammersmith Hills Hoists 80, North Hearts Crusaders 10, and the Eastern Rhinos 4, London Chargers 28, West's Warriors 50, Brentwood Eels 12. And then action from the regional leagues that saw in the London Premier Division, Brixton Bulls 32, London Scholars A28, Elmbridge Eagles 6, London Chargers A22, and no result between West Warriors A and Medway Dragons. From the Merit League, there was no result between Elmborough Eagles A and East London Dockers. And from the East of England Premier Division, there was postponements between Hemel Stags and the North Hearts Crusaders A, and between St Albans Centurions and the Anglian Vipers. In the Cup Stroke Merit League, Canvey Island 24, Eastern Rhinos 0. And in the Midlands Premier Division, Oxford Cavaliers 38, Telford Raiders 32. Ooh. We wondered how they would go after last week, didn't we?
Yeah. And they said they were up for it. They'd not interfere against Oxford Cavaliers. And to be fair, 32-38, nothing in it there at all.
Now, what's difficult about these results from North Wales League? Clwyd Cobras 56, Flintshire Falcons 30. And then in the South West Premier Division, Devon Sharks 24, Exeter Ravens 0. No result between the Saltash Essians and the Cambridge Trojans. And in the West of England Premier Division, University of Gloucestershire Old Boys against Somerset Vikings was postponed, and Swindon St George against Cheltenham Phoenix was called off. Fixtures this coming weekend, Scotland gets underway. It's the Forth Valley Vikings taking on the Aberdeen Warriors. And then the South Wales League gets underway. This is what you must have been calling about before.
Oh, no, it's not.
Aberafan Fighting Irish taking on Bridgend. The Cynham Valley Cavaliers, they host Rhondda Outlaws. South Wales Jets host the Torfin Tigers. Abbott Valley Wolves take on the Cardiff Blue Dragons. In the East of England Cup, it's Canvey Knights up against Bedford Tigers A, Hemel Stags against the St Albans Centurions. And the Midlands Merit League, well, that sees Lincolnshire Lions host the Leamington Royals A side, Boston Buccaneers at home to Derby Elks A side, North East Worcestershire Ravens, they're at home to the Nottingham Outlaws A. And then if we have a quick look at the Barrow results, in the Knockout Cup semi-final, Ulverston 24, Dalton 0. And in the Furnace Tiles League, we had Walney Central 24, Hinepool 0. In the Knockout Cup, the fixtures for this coming Friday, Barrow Island hosting Millom, Walney Central are at home to Dalton, Ulverston are up against Askham, and Hinepool, they've withdrawn from that league. Interesting to note there. And then let's bring you a couple of results from the Wheelchair Super League, shall we? London Roosters 66, Halifax Panthers 22. That's an outstanding win, that, for London Roosters. Wigan Warriors 158, Warrington Wolves 18. That's a huge win, Massive. And then in the South Division, Medway Dragons 32, Woodlands Warriors 28. And your fixtures, they see in the Championship this week, Rochdale Hornets host Bradford Bulls. And then on Sunday, Bradford Bulls are really having a busy weekend of it because they're at home against the Mersey Storm. So games Saturday and Sunday for wheelchair players from Bradford Bulls.
So you're not going to have a go at the Wales Champion School finals?
I'll leave that. Well, if you want me to, I can have a go. So it's these Ysgol Gartholwg 26, Ysgol Gyffwn Gymru Glantaf 10. That's the boys' year 7. I best not, because I'll just show myself up here, won't I? Yisgul, Guffon, Gimrag, Rindenwine, 32. Y Pant School. I can't have that one. 14.
Pant School.
And then the girls' years 9 final. You're going to edit these out, aren't you? You're not going to leave them in.
I saw these. I thought, oh my God.
Yeah, we're not mentioning these.
Yeah, how many points at Scrabble would these names be? Right, let me just write this down. 122. So that's plenty of results round up there, Parky.
Yeah, definitely loads of results. Now, as I mentioned, the early part of my Saturday was spent over at the England Community Lions training. So I decided to venture over to Caddy's Head again. This has been the base for the under-16 side. So what we'll do is in a few minutes' time, I'll bring you the full squads of all the age groups. But this was the first time that the squad had been reduced down to 20 players from the initial 40 that has been together over the first part of the programme. And I got to speak to young Lions. I always enjoy this part of the show and this part of the year really, because I get to meet some really good young players and I get them to talk a little bit and just tell me a little bit about themselves. And more interestingly, because it's been the first couple of weeks of GCSEs, I've been asking them how the studies have been going. So I started off by having a chat with Tyler Sykes from Dewsbury Celtic.
I'm Tyler Sykes and I'm from Dewsbury Celtic.
And how long have you been playing rugby, Tyler?
About 6 years. Started when I was 11 with age above, and I'm really enjoying it.
I mean, you look like you're full of vigour, you're full of running. What positions do you play?
I'm a utility player. I'm mainly full-back, half-back, but if you want me to play, I'll play anywhere.
That's probably a really good attitude to have, that, isn't it? Pull any jersey on, do anything for your team. How did you feel when you got the email through saying you made the squad?
I was absolutely buzzing. I got home from school and I was just I give my mum a massive hug, and I was just proud of all the support she's given me and bringing me to training, and hopefully I got it and I did get it, so it was a proud moment.
And what are you expecting from this sort of series where you're going to be playing against sort of Wales, Ireland, Scotland?
I'm just can't wait for the national anthem before the game, and just buzzing to play with all lads, because we've all come close as a team and all glued together for the past 3-4 weeks.
It looks that way as well. You can see sort of things developing, can't you? Those little characters between you.
Yeah, we're all a good bunch of lads. We can all have a laugh and we can all take a joke. So hopefully we go to Wales in 2 weeks and put a job on them.
Now, it's a weird sort of time as well, because obviously there's all GCSEs in the road at this minute. How are you coping with that side of things as well?
Yeah, GCSEs are going well. I'm just focusing on GCSEs and rugby, and that's all it is.
Good to hear from Tyler there, and he's got a good attitude, because he just said he'll play anywhere for the team, anywhere that needs him.
Well, that's great, isn't it? I mean, there's no ego there. I mean, that's the main thing, which he sounds first and foremost he's a team player, and that is probably what will stand him in good stead.
Now, the next interview that you're going to hear, I didn't get the first bit of the conversation, which was off mic, in fairness, and he was saying about how filtered water's better in Cumbria. So you're speaking to a Cumbrian when you've got a guy saying that, don't you? So have a listen to this. It's Henley Donnan from Hensingham. Okay, I'm delighted to be joined alongside me by another one of the under-16s Lions who's been successful in getting to the final 20. Who am I joined by?
Henley Donnan.
What club is it that you represented today?
Hensingham.
How long have you been playing rugby?
Since about 6-year-old, 7-year-old.
And tell us a little bit about how that's developed. What sort of positions can you play?
Well, I'm mainly a second row centre. Through time, I wasn't really interested in rugby, to be honest with you, until after lockdown, and then I really got into it and I thoroughly enjoy it now. So
lockdown is the reason why you're here, really, is it?
Yeah. After that, I just really enjoyed rugby and started playing consistently.
And what did you feel when you got that email this week saying you're in that 20?
Oh, I was buzzing. It's good,
And what are you most looking forward to in representing England?
Just representing England. I think it's a great honour and a great achievement.
And 4 games over the course of between now and September. It's a chance to get 4 caps as well, isn't there?
Yeah, big chance. Buzzing for it,
What are you expecting from Wales in this first game?
I think they'll be strong, athletic, and they're going to look to bully us through the middle. But I think if we keep our middle tight and play around the edges, we should give them a good go.
And to be fair, this middle and you as forwards, you don't look like you're going to get bullied.
No, definitely not. good set of forwards we've got.
And is there anyone who you've sort of become quite close to over this process so far?
Yeah, a couple of the Lee Miners boys, Ashton Bears boys, they're all good lads and they look after you and that, like, it's good.
A young second row or centre that, if you ask me, although we didn't get that much on record from him for the interview, what he did say was quite interesting, because he started going into a bit more detail of how he felt England could beat Wales.
That is good, isn't he?
So I quite like that.
Yeah, he's thinking, isn't he?
He is. He's a thinking player. Plus, we had that little chat about water as well, which was good. But yeah, always.
Is it not just water's better in Cumbria, or is it just filtered water's better in Cumbria?
I think it was any water's better in Cumbria.
Which is probably right, because a lot of the water that feeds the rest of the country, it either comes from up that way, or over in Wales.
But I said, it's just been run from a tap in Caddy's Head. It's probably come from up in Cumbria anyway.
Correct, yeah.
So, but yeah, great to hear from him, and great to hear from this next gentleman as well. So Martyn Ellis has a little bit of news for us. Let's hear it.
Okay, I'm really pleased to be joined by Martyn Ellis. Martyn, you've got some news, haven't you?
Just been promoted to assistant coach of the 16, so really excited to join the coaching team on there.
How do you feel about it? Because I know you've been around and you've been sort of coaching these lads for a few weeks now, haven't you?
I've been down from when we kicked off from the trial, when they picked the squad, and I've really enjoyed it, and then an opportunity's come up to join Tom there with the team, so I've taken it. Look forward to it.
And obviously you know Tom pretty well because you've worked with him before.
I worked with Tom a bit with England, helping him out, and then obviously done the Lancashire 19s with him a couple of years ago. Really worked together and really enjoying it.
And what do you make of this squad? Because we're down to the final 20. It looks a highly skilled squad.
Yeah, very skilled. It's going to be tough really to pick a start of 13 next week for us. In a couple of weeks' time. But there's a lot of skill on there, on show every time we train, and some listening, getting the structures, and looking forward to them, seeing them play actually together.
And that's what's really encouraging, isn't it, when you're coaching this age group in particular, because they're like sponges.
Yeah, it's hard. We're throwing a lot at them over the last few weeks, but these 20 lads have really stuck at it, and they've got it, to be fair, and a good group. They're enjoying themselves, and that's the main thing.
It'd be remiss of me not to sort of have a little natter with you with one eye on President's Cup, because you're still coaching the teachers. What's your thoughts of the next game?
Play the Police on Wednesday. Last game for me, to be honest with you. Now I'm stepping down, but we've got another good squad out and hopefully finish with a win. Really, on Wednesday. It's sad really that I'm finishing, but it's time to let somebody else move on with it.
You've given it a good goal the last couple of years, haven't you?
Yeah, it was with COVID on the first year, and then obviously we went back into it last year. We had a bit of a thing, got a good squad, good core of players, and I hope to continue and push forward there.
And then again, regarding your own club, how's it been going this season?
Yeah, it's tough. We're in the Prem again, obviously second year. We've been doing all right, been holding our own numbers. A lot of bad injuries waiting to come back. Obviously working hard with the 18s and bringing them forward. We've had about 6, I think, already made the debuts this year, which is good. So our youth have got a lot of credit for that, really.
And I know last week you had a dramatic victory, was it?
Very. It's not good for the old heart that day, really. But we stuck in there. A couple of weeks off now, really. So we've can have a rest and regroup and play again in June.
I mean, it's a tough division, isn't it? As well as the Prem for Latchford.
It is, because you've got teams who've been in there for a long time, and obviously this is our second year. Like I said, we've done it a bit tough with injuries and things, but we're just getting through that, bringing a bit of youth back in again. 18s making debuts, which is good. Gives us a lot of energy to the old boys and keep moving forward.
I'll no doubt have another chat with you soon. Thank you very much.
Cheers, Dave.
I think I tried to get as much value out of that conversation as I could, didn't I?
The thing is with Martyn, he will give it you as well, isn't he? He's a lovely, lovely bloke.
But he's been made assistant coach to the under-16s now for the forthcoming games this year, and I can't think of a better person who could have chosen.
I agree with you.
If Lee Roberts was stepping down and coming out of that role, I can't think of a better person to step into it. And having chatted as well with Tom about, he's worked with him before.
Yeah.
for Lancashire a couple of years ago. So, the guys that know each other. And I think that's good when you've got that level of trust in someone and you've already built a working relationship up with them. But I've got to say, this under-16 squad is so strong. I don't wish to sound disrespectful of what went last year, but I've only got that to compare it to at this age group. And this squad looks far better to adapt.
Yeah.
Than that particular squad. The other squad last year had some good players. There's 4 players that have stepped up to the under-17s this year and on the under-18 squads. But for me, there's so much potential in this particular squad.
Yeah.
It is really, really good to see. And as a result, I think that we're in for a good year from these under-16s. Now, if I go through who actually got the eventual call-up for the England Community Lions, well done to Jaden Aaron from Ashton Burrs, to Stanley Beaumont from Hull Wyke, to Jack Bybee from Lee Miners Rangers, Jalen Conway from Hensingham, Alfie Cox from Wathborough Hornets, Xavier Deli-Charlie from Salford City Roosters, Leighton Dockeray from Wathborough Hornets, Henley Donnan from Hensingham, who we heard from just before, Alex Golightly from Bentley, Kian Goodhand from West Hull, Jack Jones from Shawcross Sharks, Zach Mannion from West Bank Burrs, Lucas Mulqueeny from Crosfields, Nathaniel Parker from West Bank Burrs, Arbon Pervisage from Hensingham, to Lewis Pilling, congratulations from Blackbrook Royals, congratulations also to Oliver Shawcross from West Hull, Lloyd Stainton from Egremont Rangers, Tyler Sykes, who we heard from just before, from Dewsbury Celtic, and Diego Walker from Lee Miners Rangers for getting the call up. Some excellent players in that.
And what age group was that?
So this is the under-16s.
Under-16s.
You're going to have to look out for some of these kids coming through. Diego Walker from Lee Miners Rangers, he's a winger.
Yeah.
So he's got a natural finishing ability.
Yeah.
I've seen him in all these. He scores tries for fun. He's so good at communicating as well.
Yeah.
For a young player.
Well, we've mentioned that before, haven't we? And certainly I have from watching the trials last year at Pilks and watching when they were split up, our guys who'd never met each other before, and watching the ones who took on board that leadership and that communication type scenario or weren't frightened to speak.
But I've also got to compliment a lot of these Cumbrian kids as well. They are a real good communicative bunch.
Yeah.
You can tell already that they're starting to enjoy each other's company.
Yeah.
And that's a good place to be as far as the under-16s is concerned. So the under-16s are going to play 4 games between now and the end of September. So in just short of a week and a half's time, they're going to play against Wales in the first game. Then they've got games coming up against Scotland and Ireland before then playing Wales later in the campaign as well. So this is the only away fixture.
That was the thing I was just going to ask you. Is this a home or away fixture?
Yeah, so the rest are being played around venues not that far from where we have the show, to be honest. So, looking forward to those.
Yeah.
The under-17s, this almost seems to have been, in a way, brought into the programme at a later stage. So originally, there was just a plan to be under-18s. And Gary Hewer was going to select a squad that was going to be that for just that process.
Yeah.
But then we heard the French want to come and play 2 test matches against an under-17 side. So straight away, he had to look at all the under-18s players that he had selected and see who was eligible. And whether he didn't know at that stage whether he got too many 18-year-olds.
It doesn't matter. Not when you're playing the French. We've had this discussion before, Parker.
Well, it does if you're doing it by
as long as
letter of the law.
As long as they're shaved.
But anyway, there's a good standard here as well in the under-17s bracket.
Yeah.
So again, to run through these names, so well done to Harry Barker from Waterhead Warriors, to Tyler Brady from Roost Pioneers, to Miller Dalton from Hensingham, Marcus Geener from Saddleworth Rangers. He's one of the guys that played under-16s last season. To Taylor Giroud from Brentwood Eels. What a story he's got there. So Brentwood, as we know, come from Essex.
Yeah.
And he's mixing it with all these guys that have been playing rugby league for as long as you can think. Charlie Harrison, well done to him from Dewsbury Moor. Fletcher Holgate from Hensingham gets a call up to this team. Again, did really well with the under-16s last year. Josh Hopkins comes into selection from Lee East. He's another outstanding player. I know his dad as well, so he'll be glad that I'm giving Josh a mention here. But a very versatile performer. So he actually trialled playing 9, but he plays a lot at centre and standoff for his club.
Yeah.
So again, really interesting to have that. Alfie Huff comes in from Hindley.
Great name.
Great forward as well. Looking forward to seeing how he goes. Josh Langley is another one of those guys. Well done also to Joe Lewis. He comes into the squad from Siddle. To Henry Parkin, who comes in from Emley Moor. This is what I really like about these age groups, because we get to mention teams that we wouldn't necessarily have mentioned anywhere else on the show. Yeah. So Emley Moor is one of those. So great to see them represented. Congratulations to Adam Robinson and Cameron Robinson, who come in from Waterhead Warriors. To Ruben Ruan, who was in the under-16s last year and has been selected for this under-17 side. Congratulations to Jacob Rushforth of Siddle. To James Surtees of Shawcross Sharks. And to Lewis Toppin from Wigan St Jude's. So the plan for them is they're going to play 2 games against the French under-17s over the space of a week, and both of those games, you'll be glad to hear, are being played at your second favourite place, Victoria Park, Warrington.
Victoria Park, love it. I absolutely love it.
And then, last but by no means least, let's talk under-18 squad, shall we? So well done to Joshua Blinkhorn from Dalton, Callum Cottingham of the Ashton Bears, Lewis Davis from Pilkington Rex, Keane Elms from Blackbrook Royals, Tom Farron from Roost Pioneers, Dylan Greers from Kells, Jacob Hay from Siddle, George Jamieson from Salford City Roosters. Congratulations also to Armand Joseph Palinkas from Milford, to Daniel Knott from Dalton, Jack Lawler from West Hull, Ben Metcalf from Rochdale Mayfield. He looks a good player, by the way. I was really impressed with him during the trial games. Harley Nelson also has a call up from Kells, Henry Ogden from Siddle, Malachi Price from Wigan at St Jude's, Devon Sharp, halfback from Wathbrow Hornets, who again looks like a really clever player.
Yeah.
Does Devon Sharp. Looking forward to seeing how he develops over the course of these 4 games in that squad. To Harry Sheridan, who's already played first team this season at Rochdale Mayfield, Scott Simmons, who's a real quicksilver number 9 from Oral St James, Oliver Smart, who's actually stepped up a couple of age groups there because he was in the under-16s last year. So he's been selected into the under-18s. Oliver Smart from Siddle. He looks like a versatile performer. I know that last year they used him as a centre, but he looks more second row build with an extra year on him.
Yeah.
So I'm interested to see how he goes. And then to Luke Sutcliffe of the Blackbrook Royals, who, for me, he's the guy I'm really looking forward to. He's one of the busiest forwards and loudest forwards that I've heard in years.
Yeah.
So he's just got leader written all over him, to be honest. Whether he'll get the captain's knock or the captain's armband remains to be seen. But he was a guy that really impressed me during all the trials.
Yeah.
Initially, and then later when they had the main trial, he just never stops talking and never stops cajoling players into the game. I think he's a super little player, to be honest, and I'm looking forward to seeing how they go as well. So the under-18s, their programme mirrors that of the under-16s, so they're going away to Wales in a week and a half's time, and then they've got home internationals against.
So did they all go at once? Did all the teams go at once?
They will be doing this time. They will be doing this time. So last year it was run separately. because they didn't have the same. They didn't have the same opposition.
Yeah.
So if you think about it,
logically speaking,
the under-17s were on a 2-test series away in France.
Yeah.
The under-19s were obviously preparing for the European Championships, so they went off on their own way. And the under-16s, well, they ended up with, I think it was 3 internationals under the belt. So they played against Wales twice and played up in Scotland. But yeah, there's been a real coming together of the programme this year. So the under-18s fixtures mirror that of the under-16s as well. So I think the plan when they meet up will be to all go to one hotel and then move on to the game the day after, to play. But it's a really interesting concept this year. This is like my big tour this year.
Yeah.
The 2 days in Wales.
2 days in Wales. Have you got your passport?
I have. I'm ready.
Are you sure?
It's up to date.
Yeah.
It is. It's
so what you've got to find out is which is the best water. Is it the Welsh or is it the Cumbrian?
You know what? I know I'm going to ask for that one. But I do love chatting about this. Community Lions. It means a lot to me to talk about the development and how all the clubs once more have contributed to this. I mean, we've mentioned so many different clubs there, haven't we? Over those 3 age groups.
Well, not only that, Parker. The thing is, you look on social media now. And those teams have been announced, and the amount of clubs that are straight on it, and saying we're grateful to these guys, representing our club, and that's what it's all about for me. Is that the clubs have done their job. You know what I mean? They've tried to get these guys in such a good position that they can have a chance to get this shot at playing international rugby. I mean, you would have never got anywhere near that sort of thing years ago, would you? I mean, no. Let's be honest. I mean, so yeah, you've got to take your hat off to everybody.
And this is where social media is a godsend, really, isn't it? Because you can spread that news far and wide now, where you'd have to be spending a couple of hours on the telephone, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
Sort of telling everybody who you knew, and people would be contacting other people, and everything's just instant now, isn't it? So as soon as those squads were released, they're all over everywhere then, aren't they? And all being shared, and all the players are all sharing it to the families. The friends.
And what that does then, the junior players, I mean, the young kids that are coming through, and I always talk about these clubs now are like
schools.
Say schools.
Yeah, you've gone back to the schools.
I've gone back to the schools. Yeah. But they're like that, but they suddenly see the guys, who were sort of up there, who were going and representing the country. They're thinking, well, hang on, I could do that one day. If I carry on playing this and enjoying it, and, I could get to that. I mean, it doesn't mean it's the be all and end all, but there's that opportunity. I could do that.
Yeah.
And that's that's a great carrot, isn't it, for everybody? And certainly with the countries and places that they're going now. You were on about France there. I mean, you look at other tours, for the open age ones where they've gone in the past, like you're getting all in and around England and Wales, Ireland, all those sorts of places as well. Because, there are teams there that don't want to play. I mean, certainly the French. I mean, you probably get more from the French schoolboys, or better competitive game from the French schoolboys than you do from the national, sort of professional side, don't you?
Oh, definitely, yeah. I don't know what happens between that school age
it's unbelievable.
And then open age in France, because they produce so many good players.
And the commitment's really, really there. And I know we say, whoa, it's a hard match, and they're a bit, always a bit rough and tumble. But that's the way they play it. So how that never converts into, sort of the national or the professional side. It's amazing. But hey, the way it goes, isn't it?
I like how we've, started talking about international rugby league, even from a community point of view. And it seems like a good place to finish the show as well, because I had the pleasure of catching up with Nicholas Mew, who we first spoke to a couple of years ago. We spoke to him again after the World Cup, the Masters World Cup, which, Canada played their full part in. That was held over one afternoon of joyous rugby league at Least, if I remember rightly.
Yeah.
I filmed a lot of the action. It was on 2 pitches, so I filmed a lot of the action on one of the pitches. And I know that Terry, who I know quite well, who does a lot of video work for the Lions programme, actually, he filmed on the other pitch. But I got chatting to Nicholas again after that, and he's always an uplifting character. So we started by talking about how Masters had taken hold in Canada, and also how this short tour had gone, because right recently they've been visited by the Great Britain Police Masters. Okay, so as you know, here on the 13 Pro-Am Community Rugby League show, we do love chatting to guests, and I'm delighted to be joined by another. It's none other than Nicholas Mew. He's a Canadian Grizzlies international. He's also a star for the Ontario Greybeards. Nicholas, great to have you with me once again. It's been a while since we last chatted, hasn't it, mate?
It has been. I think it was back in the tour the Grizzlies did to England in 2022. 2021.
Yeah, well, it was when the World Cup should have took place, wasn't it? It was meant to be part of the World Cup of, all the World Cups of Nations, wasn't it? And then,
that's right.
The team came over and played a Masters tournament, which also involved several other countries, and did particularly well. I remember it being a really entertaining afternoon, and I really enjoyed filming that. But we've got you on because again, there's tremendous growth being shown, particularly for the Masters variant of rugby league in Canada at the minute, isn't there?
There is. We've had, in the past year, we've had some significant developments. So last May, the team flew out from Toronto out to British Columbia, out to Vancouver, where we were basically trying to kickstart rugby league, Masters Rugby League out there. There's definitely open age clubs there. There's a strong open age structure there, but there was no Masters. And so we came out in the hopes of trying to get some of those people who passed out of open age to come back and see if we could convert some people who were in union and wanted to play the Masters version of league. And it was very successful. And so that meant that during the past Grizzlies tour to the UK for the actual World Cup, when it was held, there were members of the squad who were from British Columbia who had joined after we went out there to BC. They saw what we did. They really liked it. They started to set up teams of their own. And so when the Grizzlies announced applications to go to the UK for 2022, they applied. And so several players from BC went out there. And just Friday night, a number of those BC players were also in Toronto. They'd flown in because we were hosting the Great Britain Police Masters Rugby League team. A fantastic group of guys who had seen what was going on. And they decided they wanted to bring a squad over and tour in Southern Ontario. Do the touristy things, go up the CN Tower and go to Niagara Falls and go to a Blue Jays game and all that other typical stuff, while also playing rugby league. And they'd actually contacted us all the way back in December of 2021.
Oh, so it's been a long time in building this, hasn't it?
Oh, very much so, yeah. So our very first practices were held about 4 years ago in 2019. Although we were called the Greybeards at the time, we weren't actually organized as a team. It was just a name we put out there to get some guys on the pitch. And we had a team called the South London Silverbacks come over in June of 2019 on an unsanctioned tour. But that kick-started it here, and we decided we loved what had happened and we wanted to keep it going, which is why we go other places as well and do the same thing to other people. We kind of compel them to put a team up against us just to give it a go. If you wait till people say they're ready, they'll never be ready. Mm-hmm. So you almost have to force the issue. Say, come on out and play. It's not like we're asking you to do something terrible or onerous. We want you to put on a pair of shorts and put on a pair of cleats and take to a rugby pitch and throw a ball around. And so that's why we went out to BC. That's why we're actually planning on going to Winnipeg in Manitoba the end of August. We're hopefully taking a joint squad there of guys from British Columbia and guys from Ontario to try to do the same in Manitoba. The former president of Canada Rugby League, Bob Jowett, has actually moved to Manitoba. And one of the gentlemen who lives there, who played for the Grizzlies, is a former Crosfields lad. And so he is also helping to organize it out there as well. So bit by bit, we've been working behind the scenes to grow. It's been very challenging during COVID, but at the same time, we have bi-weekly meetings or weekly meetings where we sit down and we talk about, okay, how can we do outreach and who can we talk to about sponsors and where's the best clubhouse and where's a good meeting place, and just a great group of guys who are highly, highly motivated, and everybody brings different skills to the table. Some are fantastic at organization. Some are great at media. Some are great at finding the sponsors. Some are great at liaising with other people. And so it's not just one person. It's this large group of guys that everybody's bringing something.
It sounds like it's really a team ethic that has developed, isn't it, as a result of basically, like you said, going out and saying, come on, have you thought of trying this game? Here it is. Try it out in all its glory.
Yeah, and that is what it is. It's a bunch of guys who are acting on behalf of the team, who want to see the team grow. Everybody wants to carry the ball, and everybody wants to have a great game on the pitch, but off the pitch, it's very much, okay, I want to get other people to come out and have this experience. I want to get people in the area. We'd love to have more teams grow in Ontario, and we accept that it's probably going to be a little while. We're doing it little bit by little bit. I take a stack of business cards because we've had those made up for us everywhere I go. And so as an elementary school teacher, I was coaching my school's rugby team. And at the elementary level, it's very much like league. So up to the age of 12, it's 6 tackles. And it's played tag, by the way. At that age, they're not allowed to actually tackle. So it's 6 tags and then a turnover. And all the other rules are essentially like league. And so I was talking to all the other coaches and trying to encourage them to come down to a practice with me. My own team is going to come up to Barrie because I live an hour away from the clubhouse. So my own team is going to come up to Barrie end of June, and we're hoping to encourage people in the area to come out and just give it a try. We're going to another club in Oshawa, which is not Ottawa, Oshawa, which is about probably 45 minutes from our clubhouse in a different direction. And they're a union club, but they saw what we did and they came out to a practice at our club. We're going to see if they'll form not just a union side, but also a Masters League side and play against them. So bit by bit, we're going places and we're reaching out to people. But again, it's a team effort. Somebody will come to the meeting and say, oh, I just spoke to this person. And some of it is very... not coincidental, but what's the word I'm looking for? It's like circumstances arise and you just happen to bring it up in conversation.
Yeah.
And you find something is there. It's not like it was necessarily an advertising push. It was, you just brought it up in conversation.
It's very organic. This is what I really like hearing about, this, and why I wanted to get you on again. And I know that you mentioned, the fantastic work that those police guys did. I gathered from all the pictures that they've been putting on social media and some of the videos, footage that's emerged, they enjoyed both the physicality of the games and also, as you mentioned, doing all the touristy stuff. I mean, I know that you sent me, didn't you, like a plan of their itinerary at the time. So they landed it on a Sunday afternoon. They got settled. Then on the Tuesday, they played against the Greybeards, didn't they?
Yep, they were up at our clubhouse. They played against us there. On the Wednesday night, we had a joint team social where we all went to a Blue Jays game and then went out for beers and chats afterwards. Thursday, they went down to Niagara Falls for the day. Friday, we went to Lamport Stadium. We rented out Lamport Stadium because they wanted to go where the Wolfpack had been.
Okay.
And so we arranged that. It's actually a real challenge to book that because it's a city facility, which means all the sports leagues that are in the city get first shot at all the bookings. And so we had to find what was available. But anyway, we got it. So we went there. And then Friday night, we had a fantastic social evening. Saturday, again, they did their final touristy things, checking out a few more landmarks and having another chance to meet with a few of the Greybeards and Grizzlies and Canada Select team. And then Sunday they flew. So they landed today.
And have you had a chance to have a chat with any of them since they've come back or landed yet? And I suppose it's still pretty early, isn't it, as far as that's concerned?
Oh, they've been emailing me constantly. They've been
brilliant.
sending messages on either Facebook or emails or Twitter or WhatsApp. Everybody individually raving about what a fantastic time they had, that we were such wonderful hosts, and that they're going to go to their home clubs and they're going to say, we need to take a tour over there. They wanted to say that they'd like to come back again sometime.
Yeah.
So this is really, really brilliant news.
And of course, this is very encouraging as well, because Masters is approaching a milestone. I'm not sure whether they've hit it yet, but they're approaching a milestone for registered players. So it's never been in rude health over here in the UK.
No, and we've been talking to some of the people who are in the structure of Masters over there, and they've been showing us the number of clubs that have been growing year on year on year, which is outstanding, because with Masters, you get people who might have drifted away from their playing days. They might have drifted away from a club, and yet they still have so much to offer. They have so much to offer on the pitch, of course, but also off the pitch. And Masters is supposed to be a family thing as well. So when somebody in their 40s, their 50s, their 60s plays, their spouse, their kids, their grandkids perhaps come along, and they want to pick up the ball, and also, not to put too fine a point on it, it also puts money in the hands of local clubs as well. Some money might cross the bar, which enables other teams to keep on going. We've been working with some open age clubs over here, and we share a clubhouse, and we will cross promote, so that, for our event, we were telling them and they were sending people along to watch. And when they have events, they tell us, and we promote it, and we send people along to watch as well, and to help out, maybe, help set up off the field. Without Masters, people would have drifted away. When the Wolfpack folded, a lot of the guys who were associated with the Greybeards had said, well, if there hadn't been the Greybeards, I would have just assumed rugby league was done in Canada, and I would have just gone on with my life, I had no idea rugby league really existed until the Wolfpack, and now that they're gone, I should say, now that the first iteration of the Wolfpack are gone.
Yeah, they're on the way back, aren't they, from a community point of view?
Well, we hope so. We keep hearing news that there is going to be a second version of the club. The only similarity is the name. Like, everything else is completely separate. The person who bought the branding rights, that's all they bought was the branding rights. They didn't get anything else out of it. So it's not like they assumed the debts that were owed. But they keep talking about how they're going to be playing some games at Lamport or somewhere in Toronto anyway. And I know a couple of the people who are involved. They've signed NDAs, and they are working behind the scenes to make this happen. And they're good people that I have confidence in. So I'm really looking forward to seeing what they manage to do.
I wonder how many of those guys have been attracted to stay involved in rugby league and to maybe look at resurrecting the Wolfpack, thanks to the work that you guys have been doing. Like in Masters.
Oh, I wouldn't want to give us too much credit there.
Hey, why not? I don't mind.
Well, one of the people who is involved is a lifelong rugby leaguer from Australia, and he's involved in Masters. He's been involved in the Canada Rugby League hierarchy and the Ontario Rugby League hierarchy. So he would have been involved no matter what. One of the other gentlemen that's involved is really fascinating. How he and some of the players got initially involved with rugby league, playing for the Canada Wolverines. And that was back in the day when they were trying to get things set up. They went to a rugby union tournament at a place in Toronto, outside Toronto, called Fletcher's Field, with business cards. And as the players were coming off the pitch, they just were handing cards saying, do you want to play for Canada? Do you want to play for Canada? And so they managed to recruit a handful of union players who were open-minded, and they became members of the Canada Wolverines. Now, that was going way back to the start. So you're looking at, at least 15 years ago, more than that perhaps. But those players loved it, and they stayed with it. And some of them have continued on organizing clubs and continuing to be a part of the structure here.
It sounds like there's an awful lot going on, and far more potential as a result of this tour that the Great Britain Police Masters side has done. I'm sure that must have brought things to the attention of a lot of other people as well along the way. And I'm certainly hoping that it goes from strength to strength, Nicholas. I'm sure there's quite a few other irons in the fire as we're speaking, is there?
There are. So we've got a tour, a festival rather, happening this July the 2nd. We've got a representative side from Australia, one from England, and one from Wales coming to play in a festival at Fletcher's Fields, just outside Toronto, against a Canada side. The Aussies are going to fly in, and they're going to stop off in British Columbia, and they're going to play a warm-up game against the BC teams that have started up. The English and the Welsh are going to come over, and they're going to play a warm-up game at our clubhouse in Brampton against combined Ontario Greybeards side. And then on July the 2nd, which is the day after our national holiday, Canada Day is July the 1st. So July the 2nd, we have the Sunday at the fields there, and it'll be all four teams playing each other in a round robin type of tournament, and then lots of socializing and camaraderie afterwards, as well as plenty of opportunity for tourism and travel and taking a look around.
I mean, that just sounds like a fantastic opportunity, and this is something that you've got going for you, haven't you? Because let's be honest, Canada's a beautiful country.
Well, I like it. And what we hope to as well achieve is perhaps in future, if we could make this an annual event, so that more people would have the opportunity to come over and hopefully involve other countries, because we know there's Masters Rugby League in Ireland. We know that there's the, and I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing it right, the Galliatots, who play in France. So there's a French Masters club. We'd love to have the French come over as well. The actual Masters Rugby League structure began in New Zealand, so I'd love to have the Kiwis come up as well. Now, granted, it's a long haul and it's a fairly big expense, but it's a draw for us. So if we show people locally, we say, look, we've got this international tournament, this festival coming, they're more likely to want to play for us. They're more likely to want to join up and take part. So the more tours we have coming, the more we attract people to play. And in turn, that also attracts more tourists. So we're hoping our police friends go back home and they tell their friends, they tell their home clubs, they encourage others. And it might just be, as we were saying before, very organically. It might just come up in conversation as opposed to a big marketing push or something. And with that, perhaps next year, there'll be some more teams coming over. We also intend to tour. We're kind of toured out right now. We're not going anywhere this year apart from out to Winnipeg. But in future, we would like to potentially go to Ireland ourselves. We had originally planned to go to France, send a Canadian team to France to play Masters for the Rugby League World Cup there. Now that's up in the air. We're not sure where it's going to be. South Africa, New Zealand, Australia. I've heard Qatar. I'm not sure. Somebody mentioned Canada, and I was thinking, great, but I have no idea where that rumor came from.
No, I mean, as I say, it just sounds like there's so much going on. I can tell you're excited.
Absolutely. And it's not just though that it's going on, it's that we have to make it happen. Mm-hmm. So that if you wait for things to happen, if you wait for things to come to you, you're going to be waiting a long time. There are some times when you have to say, I'll take the initiative. I'll strike up the conversation. I'll see, if my idea has any kind of legs, if somebody can add to it, if somebody has something better. And that's how we've grown. There's a great growth in sports for people in the over 35 age bracket as well. All sports. I've noticed this all over the place, that countries are trying to get their citizens, their people, to take part in sports activities for the social, for the health, for all those benefits. And we see ourselves as potentially being a part of that.
I mean, we've just had Mental Health Awareness Week over here in the UK. So certainly from that point of view as well, for bringing people together and encouraging positive communications, Masters is made for it, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely it is. Just getting out once a week. I was pretty much a house hermit prior to this. All my all my activities, all my hobbies were very much solitary, so I'd garden, collect coins, build models, read books, listen to music, play the drums, play the piano, that kind of stuff. That's all in my house. So I wasn't going out and I wasn't meeting a lot of other people. But with this, I was. And I can't overstate the benefits mentally. Meeting up with the guys virtually as we were planning during COVID was such a vital thing for all of us, because when we were confined to our homes, working from home, and you're on the computer all day, and you're, as a teacher, I'm meeting with my class, but then you basically can't separate work from home. There was nothing else aside from work and home. And so with the Masters, that gave me the outlet that I needed. That gave me the social group. That gave me the friend group that really helped pull a lot of us through, pulled me through, just made things a lot easier for us to cope.
Just out of interest, because I mean, I don't know whether you knew, but we sort of, if you like, came out of the COVID, or started to come out of the whole COVID times round about, I think it was about July 2021. Did it last longer in Canada?
I wouldn't say it lasted longer, but I'd say the restrictions were in place for longer. And of course, because Canada is a federation of 10 provinces, and each province controls their own health regulations, it was very much piecemeal across the country. So that, in my province, Ontario, the schools might have been teaching from home. The kids weren't in the schools, and yet in 3 or 4 or 5 other provinces, the kids were in schools. So you got this piecemeal kind of approach. There weren't a whole heck of a lot of federal regulations, except for people coming in and out of the country. And even that had its own problems in terms of, the land border with the States, because that's a vital trade connection for us. That's our biggest trade partner, is the United States. And so if you shut off that land border, you effectively close down all trade. So people had to be able to come in and out that way. It was messy. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah, I was just genuinely interested, because I know through doing the show how COVID affected rugby league in this country. But I mean, when you've got something like that where don't get me wrong, it's past the embryonic stage, isn't it? And obviously we're talking about a Masters team where you've got a group of guys that are getting to know each other, the teammates. But it's a real credit to you all for how you kept that going throughout that time, because I guess at some point it would have been quite easy just to say, you know what, I don't fancy it tonight.
Yeah, and there were times when we had planned events where we were going to go to the clubhouse, and then within the space of a couple of weeks, the rules changed. So now we can't meet at the clubhouse because our numbers would be too great. You can't have a run out if you're getting too close to one another. So you can't play any kind of contact. You're going to have to play distantly. We actually had tags made that instead of hanging down perfectly at your side, they were made of a more firm material, and so they flexed out at a 45-degree angle, so you could pull tags and not actually get as close to the other person. I mean, we were doing whatever we could to try to keep this going, and also to motivate our players, so motivate the people who'd signed up. And so we would be making announcements, every couple of weeks, and we'd say, all right, so this is where we're going to be going. Okay, that's not going to work out, guys, but here's the next thing that we're talking about, and just to keep them engaged, just to keep the communication lines open. I
love the innovation with that, particularly where you were talking about the tags. Again, I'm really appreciative that you've continued and the guys have continued the flying the rugby league flag. Because again, I suppose post Toronto Wolfpack, it would have been so easy for a lot of people just to let the sport slide. But it's all credit to you, and I sincerely wish you all the best with all these other things you've got going on, and I would like to hear about them as well as we get into the time where we've got the tournaments happening and what have you.
Oh, I'm always happy to share about them. If the original Wolfpack had continued, it would have made our growth a lot easier. But it has instilled a passion in a number of people and reignited that passion in others who had it before, who thought they'd never see rugby league in Canada, and they want to make it work. So the Masters now are also people who have decided to take on organizational roles, leadership roles within the Canada Rugby League Association, within their different regions. And there are people that you speak to who are dismissive. They see it as just a bunch of old guys gallivanting about, which is, dismissive, condescending. But when they see, oh, well, they actually knocked on a few doors and they got a sponsor, and that sponsor is willing to support more than just one team. It's willing to help support the league. They're like, oh, okay, maybe we should pay a little bit more attention to that. So we don't just bring something on the field; we bring some off the field skills as well.
You can't help but be enthused after listening to Nicholas, can you?
No. I remember. That's how I remember when you mentioned his name. I remember when we very first spoke to him, and I thought, how can a guy who's out in Canada be so enthusiastic about rugby league? And he was back then. And like I mentioned off her before we started the show tonight, after that, so the Lee and the World Cup scenario, he could have easily have turned around and said, you know what, I've done a good job here. I'll hang my boots, so I'll let somebody take over the reins and I'll take it back. But he's not. He stopped there and he's full throttle, still at it again, and which is fantastic.
And it sounds like he's not just ploughing a lone furrow. There's other people who want to help out and they want to spread the word. And I found it so uplifting hearing about, moving up to play potential games in Winnipeg and British Columbia, and having guys that, 2-3 years ago, they didn't know anything about rugby league, representing the country.
Yeah. I mean, you look at it logically as well. I mean, we always go on about could rugby succeed in America? I mean, these are the types of ways of fading it in, aren't they? You're getting guys. I mean, some of the masters teams that you have now. I mean, some of the players you got ex-pros who are playing in there, as well as your guys from the community who've played for years. So if you can get those going over as well, the stories, the tales, that knowledge that they've got. We were on about Ashton Golden before, divulging the knowledge that he has. I mean, this is a way, because they've got ultra years of experience and knowledge, and just to get spectators enthused about watching it and interested. So lighting that blue touch paper, as it were.
So I really look forward to having a catch-up with Nicholas towards the back end of the year to find out what else has happened, because it sounds like there's an awful lot going on, and I think that there's even more to come from that story.
I see they were playing at my favourite Canadian ground as well, playing at the Lamport.
Oh, yeah, you've been there, haven't you?
Yeah. When they took the dome, just after they took the dome off, because obviously during the winter it's covered over, and they do play under it from what I can gather when the different sports over there. And I remember when they took the dome off, so it was a little bit of snow around, etc. And it's a different gravy, as they say.
Well, Steve, it's been a mammoth show, this one, hasn't it?
Huge, mate, huge.
But very enjoyable, really enjoyed actually being in your company for a change.
Yeah, it makes a change being face to face.
It does, doesn't it? Yeah.
And you know what? He's still not made a cup of tea.
I think I'm going to try and escape before I get made to chuck a typhoon in a cup. Anyway, a storm in a teacup. Right, that's us done and dusted for this episode of 13 Pro Community Rugby League Show. Do remember that you can follow us, like us, do whatever you want. We'll be back again with another show very soon.
We certainly will.